Please give this video a like and subscribe!
Here we go. And we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian. I'm here with Allison, and this is Maintaining Frame. Good writing is male privilege, where we're going to be responding to a video from a channel. What is this channel called? I already forgot. Mr. Zod. It's called Mr. Zod. And I guess this is like part of the literary YouTube. This is literature YouTube. And they talk about writing and storytelling and stuff like that. But of course, because this is just the reality we live in, everything becomes political when there is a disagreement about how to construct anything. Basically, I mean, there's probably channels about, building custom motorcycles that suddenly has like a political conversation erupting. So this channel, Mr. Zod, is talking about a video by another channel called The Second Story, which is, I'll show you guys the channel so you guys can see it. This is The Second Story. This woman does critiques of modern literature because she is concerned with the direction storytelling is going. And you can see that here, some of her titles. Bring Back Real Women. Strong female characters are just toxic men. The absolute degeneracy of modern writing. I think she talked about the pornification, let's say, of literature and romantasy. Fan fiction ruins everything. No lies detected, and things like that. So she's kind of like critiquing the sort of current state of literature, and that is not going to happen without some blowback from the people defending that status quo. So we have Mr. Zod here who is going to sweep in and tell the woman to shut up and sit down because she's doing it wrong and it's political, even though she isn't political at all. So we're going to be looking at that. No, she just cares about good writing.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to be looking at that. That's the last. I interrupted you before you could complete your thought. Apologies.
That's okay.
Get you used to it. All right, so if at any point throughout the show you want to send us a message, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/justtip and a tip with that message. I guess it's actually not, come to think of it, it's not just the tip, is it? It's also a message with a tip. Anyway, feedthebadger.com/justtip, very best way for you to send us funds and the best way for you to send that comment, not through YouTube's comment enhancement system. And if you want to support the show, that's at feedthebadger.com/support. This item was actually sort of requested by Richard, not quite, as like a break from the Byrony cancer. Yeah. So thank you, Richard, for taking your boot off our neck for one episode. But anyway, no, I'm just teasing or crying inside. So once again, if you want to support the show, feedthebadger.com/support. And if you want to join us in our community, Feed the Badger, no, not Feed the Badger, strike that. It would be badgernation.online. Okay, so let's
I will say, I did see this video like a week ago or something, and I thought about putting it through, but it's like an hour and 15 minutes. And that's the thing, a lot of what I've noticed with a lot of these, like, I'll just say it, like feminist kind of responses or woke responses to like regular people that just have regular concerns, is that they know that it's not easy for them to make a good argument quickly and succinctly. So they take like an hour to like roll it all out slowly with lots and lots of rhetoric and padding. So that's why I was like, God, this is just so much to go through. But I do have something of a, I guess you could say, a bullet point list of things to look at. So let's go ahead and get into the primary arguments. Let me see here. We'll jump to about 2 minutes in. So, well, I'll play from the beginning so we have a little bit of a background. What?
No, I'm looking forward to this. I'm
all right. Let's do it.
Flavor of that genre. That being a woman presenting with kind of this low-key school teacher vibe, wearing a light sweater, sipping tea, surrounded by books. Think maybe Zoe B or Jess of the Shire. Now, I know I'm painting with a pretty broad stroke of the brush, and maybe it sounds like I'm commoditizing a certain way that women present themselves, but, people do brand themselves certain ways for a reason, and I like the kind of thoughtful, relaxing sort of presentation that usually accompanies this aesthetic. In this case, not so much. This one turned out being a weird conclusion-seeking airing of grievances.
Oh my fucking God. He doesn't like it because she doesn't share his opinion.
Yeah.
That's a sign of a true woman respecter.
Yeah, just to explain, like the second story, all of her videos are sort of like she has like a big mug of coffee or tea or something, and it's like a cozy atmosphere. Like that's her like setup. And there's a lot of, I guess, booktube people that have the same kind of setup. And so he's saying, well, it's a weird thing to open with is, visually it looks okay, but then she opened her mouth, that's kind of what he's saying, right? Weird for a male feminist. Opinion. Yeah, weird thing for a male feminist to say, but okay. Yeah. He even you notice how he sort of like leads it with, I don't normally, I prefer this kind of, here are some other women that are more based, in my opinion, that also do this. He's like setting it up like I'm not being a sexist because I'm attacking the right woman. But anyway.
But also, weird and all. I just wanted to add, like, if you like books, you're going to have books, right? And you know what's really good to pair with books? Actually, not for me, because eventually the contents of my mug will end up on the book. But what's really good to pair with a book, generally, is a hot beverage of some kind. So I think that the aesthetic is less an aesthetic and just what usually happens when somebody likes books, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Just like there are certain things that usually happen if someone engages in car repair. Like there are things that accrue when you engage in this particular activity, and maybe it's not an aesthetic. This is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Let's keep going.
The wrong ways. It kind of shows how regressive ideas can seep into otherwise normal, thoughtful conversations. And I don't know, it was just kind of a wild ride. So let's go on it.
So he immediately goes with, she's got regressive ideas. All right. So again, I'm going to remind you guys that the second story basically takes issue with the direction that fiction writing is headed. That's kind of like where that's her only real thing. She's not, like I said, she's not political. She's not even really like, I don't think she's like base and red pilled or anything. She's pretty normal, but that's what I think what's interesting is that the normal is now the enemy as well. But all right. So this is the channel. It's called Mr. Zod.
Can I just?
Yep.
Oh, wait, we should probably, you know what? I wanted to say something about how pervasive what the second story, the woman who created the second story channel, what her opinion is. Like, publishing is an industry that is dead. I'm gonna just lay it out to you, and I can talk about the actual on the ground numbers about this industry, and I will. But it's not just the second story that has a problem with it. Almost like a huge part of everybody who reads has a problem with it. It's just they're not telling anyone. They're just not buying anymore. All right, let's continue.
Okay.
Now, before actually getting into her topic, she started with some light drama about who didn't like her previous video. But that kind of washed over me the first time I watched the video, so we're going to save that for later. There is definitely a rabbit hole to go down there.
And the fact that there has been just as much support, if not more, from women is also very heartening.
The fact that she considers it a little surprising that women also supported her for this last video paints a little bit of the picture, but again, we'll get to that later.
How?
How?
like, do you see that he's like, I don't, there's a lot of like,
Poisoning the well.
sort of, but it's like he doesn't want to be aggressive, so he does this thing where it's like, well, that says a lot about so and so. That says a lot. Like there's
Passive aggressive.
it's very passive aggressive. It's like it's very passive aggressive. But okay.
For now, let's start into the actual topic of this video, which begins with a description of what an antagonist is and the role they play in a story.
Right, let's get into it. Villains, or if you like, antagonists, are an essential component of any story. This can take a whole assortment of forms. Basically, antagonist really only means that the hero, or protagonist, has to have some significant resistance to his ultimate narrative goal. For that reason, you can get away with things like the environment being the antagonist in disaster movies, or the protagonist himself being his own worst enemy in certain kinds of dramatic stories, or both. A villain is really just the opposition to the hero's goal.
All right, so this is the video specifically that he's reacting to by her. I believe she wrote, she has a video called Pathetic Evil, where she talks about how, and I think, it's called Safe Evil. Safe Evil. And the title of the video is Modern Villains Are Pitiful and Impotent. So I want you guys to think about that. And tell me, do you agree with that? So this is the video right here. It's called Safe Evil. Modern villains are pitiful and impotent. Do you think that's true? Because that's the criticism she's levying at like the current state of not just books, like, you know, the literature, but also film and television, like right now. That's why her thumbnail has, like, you know, I guess what you would call good examples, like Thanos and what's the guy from Silence of the Lambs? Hannibal Lecter, Commodus from the Gladiator movie, and Sauron from Lord of the Rings. So she's basically saying that they don't write villains like that anymore. So, okay. I don't know if you want to say anything about that, Alison, or if you just want me to keep going.
I'm thinking that we're not going to really have a discussion of whether or not villains are sort of pathetic now. I think we're going to have a discussion of something completely different than what she's trying to have a discussion about.
For something completely different.
Completely different. I suspect that's what
man with 3 buttocks.
Mr. Sod is going to bring. He's going to bring the conversation about the man with 3 buttocks.
This is not the Zod that I remember. All right, let's keep going.
Is it just me, or did the sound just stop?
Oh, you can't hear it? Oh, I might have to
No.
wait. Let me see.
Yeah,
You're
what's
right.
going
Yeah,
on?
no, for some reason, sometimes when I pause this, I have to do the hold on. I have to stop sharing and then share it again. I don't get
I
why that
gotcha.
is.
It's
But
because
it's
it wants
just,
to be difficult.
yeah, lame is what it is. All right.
Is really just the opposition to the hero's goal.
So I guess this is fine is kind of a basic classroom style explanation of what an antagonist is. It's pretty basic, but sometimes you do need to lay the groundwork. So that's all cool. We will revisit this soon. Then she gets into her thesis. First, she describes what she sees as a change in modern stories.
That being said, villains, that is to say bad guys, have been experiencing a strange evolution in the last few decades, especially more recently. For one thing, they have become less and less villainous. Taking it further, they have become less and less evil.
Then she describes why bad guys aren't as bad as they once were.
Part of this is in an effort in modern and postmodern literature to provide all aspects of a story with more multidimensional realism.
All right, before she misrepresents, and I should have audio now, so let me know if you guys see it. She said part of the reason for this. So like she's being very charitable by saying, well, modern writers are trying to basically like make the villains more 3-dimensional and less kind of like, you know, flat or overly simplistic. Right? So this is her saying that's part of it. And nuanced villains have always existed. So it's not like the modern writing culture created that. So, but she's basically explaining that while this is okay in certain circumstances, it's become, I think, the predominant way that we write. In fact, it's almost inverted, which, I would argue it is inverted and it's on purpose, but she's trying to be very delicate. So
Naturally, a villain,
The time,
a human.
what?
the time for charity is gone. It's over.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Or human adjacent. So there ought to be more to him than just being the bad guy. Maybe we ought to examine how he came to be the bad guy, or whether or not his goals might have some merit.
So basically, modern antagonists are being painted as less one-dimensionally evil so they can serve as actual characters in a more realistic story. Makes sense to me. But she doesn't see it exactly that way.
All of this ostensibly in the pursuit of richer characters, which is not an unworthy pursuit, but let's tackle this issue one piece at a time. All of this literary experimentation has its place, I suppose, if you do it right, which, as I said, we'll get into in a bit here.
And here we go. This kind of writing has its place, I suppose, if you do it right. Now, the words "if you do it right" just don't sit super well with me. Like, maybe I'm being a little harsh with a graphic I already know I plan to put on screen, but I think the core comparison stands.
Okay, now here's where we jump the shark. Did you guys catch that? Allison, did you catch that?
Yes, I did. Why can't they protest peacefully, but not like that, but not like that, and not like this? Okay, well, so we're comparing any expectation of quality or standard to marginalizing people who are protesting. And I assume that the Canadian trucker protest doesn't belong on this meme, this left meme, at all.
No.
Right? For some reason, government overreach in particular in a particular time period is completely fine. But I digress. We are now basically saying, right, that she has an opinion on how things should be written. Now, whether or not it's personal opinion or it's an objective craft metric, we haven't determined yet. He's already poisoning the well and saying that she is part of some kind of tyranny, probably patriarchal, let's face it, because it always is. Patriarchal tyranny. All right.
Yeah. And also, again,
go.
immediately goes to she must be racist, because this image is picked for a very specific reason. He's trying to plaster her with a label without overtly doing it, which is why he even said, well, this could be, maybe this is a little hyperbolic, maybe, but I'm going to put it out there anyway and let you, the audience, come to your own conclusion. You see how he does that? It's very, very feminine. I don't know how else to describe it. It's very passive aggressive. It's very much like, I don't want to be held accountable for the allegations I make. If you say, well, I don't know if it was rape, but I do know that I didn't want it. And I didn't like the way I felt afterwards. And I don't remember much. And, I don't think I should call the cops, but maybe something should happen to this person in the future. I'm not saying something should happen, and it's like, what are you doing? Yes. That's what this
You're
is.
constructing a negative
Yeah.
space.
Also, I just want to say, with regards to this specific point he's trying to make, I think it's ridiculous, because let's look at the trucker protests. What's the difference between the trucker protests in Canada and these Black Lives Matter protests? I'll tell you what the difference was. The truckers got debanked. Some of them got fined, arrested. There were consequences of force coming from the government. With these, there were no consequence. Nobody arrested Kobe Bryant. Nobody arrested Kyle Kaepernick. None of that happened. You know what happened? There were people that criticized the behavior because they said, well, I think you guys are kneeling for the wrong things. I don't think that this is correct. I disagree with you in terms of what it is that you did. I don't think you should be doing this. But nobody said you're fired. Nobody said you're going to jail. Nobody said you don't have access to your bank account anymore. This is not even in the same sport. This is nothing alike. So when the people you like are criticized, not like penalized, not arrested, not fined, just criticized by some people on the internet for reacting to for doing whatever they do, for protesting, you think that that's the same as people being fined and debanked. And of course, you don't care about the people who got debanked. You probably thought they should have stayed in their homes because, COVID, if it did anything, it revealed how comfortable people were with state violence, with state force. So I'm not even going to accept this. I'm like, you know what? I don't care if you have really awful opinions on this stuff, but I don't want you going to jail for it. So that's what I would say. So yeah, no, not at all the same. And I know what you're trying to do. Again, you're trying to paint this woman as something that she clearly isn't. In fact, she probably would have agreed with all of this stuff. But you don't care about that because you don't like that she has an opinion on how villains should be written in fiction.
Yeah, I'm not even sure how this individual became right wing. But anyway,
because she disagreed with him. That's it. But anyway, yeah.
He disagreed with her because I don't think there's any I don't even know if she really recognizes. Anyway, let's continue.
Okay, let's keep going.
In either case, it seems a person sees a behavior as inherently problematic and doesn't want to admit that. So instead, they just presume to tell everybody else how they expect others to engage in it. Usually in arbitrary, vaguely expressed terms that leave them perpetually subject to your approval and probably unable to ever win.
That sounds like projection.
Yeah, that sounds like serious projection. And again, this is all over her saying there may be.
Can we write villains better?
Can we write villains better? Yeah. There may be a way to write a villain, who is not really a villain, but I don't see that happening. And we haven't even got she is prejudging. I think I recall not necessarily agreeing with her, but I'm pretty sure that all of this other stuff is him trying to inject baggage into her opinion on something that is relatively innocuous. I mean, I'm going to offer a much less innocuous opinion than hers. I guarantee it. So why don't we continue?
All right.
Now, if this seems like an overreaction, part of it might be that I've seen this video to the end, and maybe you'll catch up with me as we get there. But I suspect you're already picking up on the same vibe I am. Before reaching this final conclusion, she'd already referred to the writing of fleshed out characters as a strange evolution, suggesting that it's a new thing, which it's not, and said that this is being done ostensibly in pursuit of richer characters.
Let me go back to that. Let's go back to that.
Wait. There's some scope creep happening here.
Yeah.
Now he's talking about her being against fleshed out characters? No, she said she thinks that villains have become pathetic. All right, but continue, Brian.
Yeah. Well, I just want to read this part. I don't know if she's quoting, this is him that wrote this, but it says, villains, that is to say bad guys, he's quoting her, have been experiencing a strange evolution in the past few decades, especially more recently, which I don't think is untrue, but I think it's maybe been, you could maybe argue it's been like a slower process that's kind of pump the gas a little bit recently. For one thing, they've become less and less villainous. Taking it further, they become less and less evil. Part of this is an effort in modern and postmodern literature. Postmodern literature is interesting, to provide all aspects of a story with more multidimensional realism. Naturally, a villain would be a human or a human adjacent, so there ought to be more to him than just being the bad guy. Maybe we ought to examine how he became to be the bad guy, or whether or not his goals might have some merit. All of this ostensibly in the pursuit of richer characters, which is not an unworthy pursuit, but let's tackle this issue one piece at a time. All of this literary experimentation has its place, I suppose, if you do it right, which, as I said, we'll get into in a bit here. So I think that ultimately what it comes down to is she's saying that if you can't write well, you won't write good villains. Ultimately, when she says if you do it right, it means that you have to be good at writing these kinds of characters. And I think that there's some truth to it, right? I mean, you should be able to write them well.
Yes, that's essentially what we're arguing, and we are saying is apparently equivalent to what this guy considers to be racism.
Yeah.
and
Well, saying
take
that we should
over.
write them better is kind of like it's pro meritocracy. See?
Yeah,
Because if you
and
can't write well, then that means you're not
you
good
know what the
enough.
meritocracy is?
Yeah.
It's patriarchy.
Yes.
Grammar is patriarchy. Craft standards is patriarchy. Writing villains well, that's a patriarchy right there.
Writing heroes well. Yeah.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah.
It's all patriarchy, and you got to point it all out.
Exactly. All right. So let's see. Yeah, let's keep going.
Range evolution, suggesting that it's a new thing, which it's not, and said that this is being done ostensibly in pursuit of richer characters. I guess meaning there's some other agenda at play here. The whole thing is just obviously drenched in condescending passive aggression.
But something that we
What, like not your video isn't drenched in that? But also like but like what if there is another agenda? Like can I suspect that every time you tell a story about a character that I know very well that's been around forever and you subvert the everything about them, that I can assume that you're up to something? Like, is that like in Rings of Power when they made Sauron like a bad boy like Chad? I didn't watch it, but like they made him into almost like a romantic interest character, and the people were all like, I can fix him. Do you think that I would think, wait, Sauron is like the embodiment of all evil in Middle Earth, and you're making him into kind of like this dangerous, like, sexy guy? Like, and you could say, well, evil is sexy, sure, but you're kind of like, this isn't, there is such a thing as in writing, there are characters that are just evil. Like they're elemental evils, like they're pure evil. Those characters do exist. And when you try to inject nuance into that, that's when I become suspicious. In other kinds of characters that have trauma or, abuse in their history or something, I can understand that. What was it in you ever read Treasure Island, right? Long John Silver was the villain in the story, but he was also like, there was some, like there was a part of him that was like that you wanted to like see healed. Like that, like he wasn't just pure evil, but pure evil is okay too. Like in Sleeping Beauty, the Disney movie, Maleficent, it's in her name. She's malevolent. She was pure evil. Like she was like a dark fairy that summoned, the fires of hell. And then they made the movie with Angelina Jolie and they completely fucked it up because they were like, oh, well, you know why she's like that? Because some man did her done wrong. And now it's okay for her to be evil. In fact, this is a girl boss movie now. So like if I saw that and I was like, well, this is fucking fishy. Like, am I like some far right bad guy now? Because I think that's lazy writing because somebody what the hell is these Wicked movies about? Like
okay,
this.
so I'm gonna go to bat for Wicked because I actually really liked LeGuire's book. I think it was.
Well, I never read the book, but I don't know much about it. But I'm talking about the movie at least, the one with Cynthia.
Yeah, but I'm gonna go to bat
whatever.
for that one. I think it was well done.
All right.
It was more like he was bringing like a more a contemporary politics, but it wasn't bad. Okay. I'm gonna go to bat for that.
All right. Well, I never saw it, but I do think that characters that were evil because that was like the most important characteristic. I think that when you redeem them, I think it's fair for people to find it suspicious, like you're up to something. So she was called the Wicked Witch of the West.
100%.
Okay.
100% I agree.
All right.
I agree. Now, having said that, well, I think what he did was well done. I agree that the tendency, that he started, which it's almost like he started the whole revising fairy tales thing.
Yeah.
It's gotten very lazy. It's not as well done. And the only reason why they're doing it is because let's face it, they're redeeming wicked women.
Yes.
So what they're doing is they are removing the concept of evil, of recognizing the particular forms that evil takes in women.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I reckon it, and again, what he did with Wicked is that she was an extremist. She was motivated, and you could see some sympathetic qualities in her. But at the same time, there was stuff that wasn't sympathetic. So it was a more complicated character, but that's not what they're creating. They're not creating more complicated characters. And this is maybe
No.
where she's getting into. What they're doing is they're just saying patriarchy done did it. And they're taking evil female characters, blaming men or blaming external circumstances, usually men, and saying that they aren't responsible. That isn't creating a more complex character.
Mm-hmm.
That is creating it's creating a less complex story. Okay. And so maybe that's where she's going with it.
Yeah,
I don't think she does, actually.
I don't know if this guy goes through the whole video, but let me see if I need to get to the next time code. So it's a little bit more in this clip.
As a society have apparently forgotten is that most of the time a crucial factor in the villain's character is evil. Of course, I don't mean that all characters need to be Lucifer-esque, Morningstar, or even Morgoth. Although huge, ugly, powerful evil is actually a crucial aspect of fiction that is currently all but extinct.
Now, I don't share in her assessment that villains need to be evil, but setting that aside, and we will get back to it real soon, it's just not true that we don't have evil villains in fiction anymore, right? I mean, just for obvious examples, think of the Joker.
I totally agree with him. They definitely have evil characters in fiction. They're called white, cis, het men.
Yeah. And he says, and then he brings up characters that are like 20 years old. So he goes, oh, no, we still have it. How about the Joker? When did that movie come out?
Back to it real soon. It's just not true that we don't have evil villains in fiction anymore, right? I mean, just for obvious examples, think of the Joker.
All right. So the Joker from The Dark Knight was more an agent of chaos than evil, but I'll leave it be. It's okay. I'll accept it. But that movie came out, what, like in 2000 something? I don't know, but it's old. It's 20 years old, probably. So that's not recent.
And now the
Emperor Palpatine is super old. So, and yeah, this guy is a very good example of real evil, but saying Star Wars is a recent example is kind of ridiculous. Thank you. Crowbar the Skull says 2008. That was when Batman. That's almost 20 years old. It's coming up. It's like 18 years old. Okay? Do you feel old yet? The Dark Knight is 18 years old.
Star Wars? Does it need to get more evil than that? Most seasons of Fargo have a clearly evil character. Lorne Malvo, Orietta Mayflower. Hell, is Roy Tillman not enough for you? Does he not seem evil in your eyes? We'll circle back to our thoughts on that kind of character.
Again, those are just like cherry-picked examples. Many of them are not old enough. Fargo, the show, I think that's pretty old as well. But that doesn't really dispute the trend, you know? And you have to wonder, like, again, why are we... Like, do we want, because I think we're very close to doing this, okay? Do we want Star Wars to make like a show about Emperor Palpatine's like childhood and we get like this story about how he turned into Palpatine that we're supposed to make him more sympathetic? Like, that's what they would do. Now, they wouldn't do it Palpatine because he's like a cis white guy who's clearly straight because he had like a daughter, but like they would probably do it for any number of other things. And so it makes me think, well, do you just want do you just want the concept of evil to lose meaning? Because that's what when he says, well, I don't think that evil is that important to being a villain. It sounds like it's kind of central to being the villain in the story. Fargo season 1 was 2014. So yeah, that's like 12 years old. That's what I'm talking about. Fargo the movie was 1996. He was talking about the TV series that came out later. Okay. Black Cat Red Ed says, are we talking about writing in film fiction or writing in book fiction?
Everything.
I know, yeah, it's all writing, period. These are vertical chat people, I think. Yeah.
Welcome, vertical chat people. Bring your specialness and lay it upon us. Okay, can I just point something out? If you want to talk about a force that opposes the protagonist that isn't villainous, there is a word. It is called an antagonist. And an antagonist does not have to be villainous, but a villain should probably be villainous. Just
Yep.
saying. God, what a fucking idiot.
Yeah,
Anyway.
antagonist is not villain. Antagonist is just, it could be a rival, it could be the elements, it could be, you know, anything else.
It could be an Inspector
nature.
Javert.
Yeah.
An
yeah.
Inspector Javert is like a character who's upholding the law.
Like
and
in The
who-
Fugitive, it was like
Yeah.
you know, Tommy Lee Jones was like the antagonist, but he wasn't a bad guy. Yeah.
No, he wasn't a bad guy. He was just upholding the law while the main character was a fugitive from the law through no fault of his own. So
Yeah.
that is an antagonist.
All right, I got a Super Chow came in. Dark Kikimura gives $5 and says, off topic, but do we have an update on the PM situation in the Discord? I don't know what that means.
There is nothing that I can do. Discord PMs are a Discord feature, not a feature that I have any control over or anyone in the Discord.
Are you trying to send a private message to someone? You just got to like put their name in Discord and they have to accept the PM.
The other thing is if you're having a problem with PMs, you can also at people in the Discord. That's all I can give you. Okay, let's keep going.
Character. And even a genre deconstruction like The Boys gives us pure psychopathic nightmare fuel in the form of Homelander.
Yeah, so I like how he brings up like actual subversive content that exists specifically to undermine, like, you know, the sort of like, let's say, the classical archetypes of good and evil, and then says, well, that's a good example. No, this is actually a good example. Well, I don't think it's what she would argue, but it's what I would argue about the subversion of everything, the inversion of everything. So, yeah, you're basically making the argument that I would say, yeah, this is what's happening, right? So I guess, but I mean, The Boys is trash. Like I watched one season, I thought it was garbage. I didn't like it at all. I don't know why I don't know how it's managed to stay on air. Like, I don't know why people are impressed with it.
It's a subversion of the hero archetype.
It's a subversion. Yeah, intentional subversion of hero archetypes. And he's like, this is a good example. No, you're basically showing me your ass right now because you seem to be in favor of the subversion of everything, and then you're calling it normal. It's just normal writing, bro. It's just postmodern writing. It's what we're doing now. Well, you don't think that's evil? Okay, yeah, sure. Like if you took like a story like Star Wars and you just made the Emperor good and Luke Skywalker evil, this guy would argue, well, there is still evil because look, Luke Skywalker's evil, so we still have villains. And he wouldn't like make the connection of like, oh, you just took like, you know, the two sides and reversed them, and now you're saying it's like success. We still have villains. They're just like the straight white Christians instead of like, you know, the demons. It's like in The Exorcist, you know, the priests that come to do the exorcism, if they were made into the villains, and Pazuzu, who possessed the little girl, if we found out Pazuzu was actually a good person that was just abused by his mom or something, you know, or had like, no, not by his mom, by his dad, had to be his dad, beaten by his alcoholic father in the trailer park in the first layer of hell, and then he had to run away from home because he was so abused by his abusive father. So he left hell and possessed a little girl so he could feel safe. And then these big bad Catholic priests showed up and they exorcised him. Like if you said, hey man, you're I don't like the way you're painting it because you're making Pazuzu out to be the good guy. He'd be like, yeah, but the priests are the bad guy. You have bad guys. We have bad guys in this story. They're just the Catholic exorcists. That's all.
You know what?
No harm, no foul.
I'll believe that they genuinely want to make villains complex when they give Frollo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame this treatment.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the antagonist in Pocahontas. You know.
Savages, barely even human.
Okay, you do that. You do that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I smell the stink of ideology upon
Well, that's
you.
what I'm saying. That's kind of like what bothers me about this is that this guy thinks he's very smart by saying, look at this thing that is intentionally subversive as an example that counters your argument. I don't even know that the this channel, the second story, the lady, I don't even know that she would necessarily disagree that this is an example, but it and even then I think they go into some like weird stuff, and with like the villains in this story in The Boys, like to give them some nuanced backgrounds as well. So even then they like still do it. They don't treat them like just as, you know, mustache twirling evil. So but anyway,
Performance is nuanced and shows us why he is the way he is, but that just makes him even scarier, right? And honestly, I just don't care to spend a lot of time rebutting this assertion, especially since Anthony Gramuglia did such a great job covering it himself. It was interesting as a side note. I just happened to run into her video and thought of it as some random little thing only I'd seen, only to find his rebuttal a few days later. I guess that's just the way the algorithm works. What I'm more interested in.
yeah, so I was gonna say this woman, she's getting a lot of shit from a lot of other booktubers. Is that what they call it? Booktube? She's getting a lot of shit from a lot of other booktubers because the majority of people on Booktube are woke as hell. And they don't like that she's even like saying, you know, this stuff's a bit, it's pretty bad. Like, she's like, you know, there's fan fiction in all of it now. And this isn't just in books. This is in TV. This is in film, you know? Yeah, go ahead.
You want to know why this is happening? It's because Book Talk and the publishing industry, Book Talk is essentially astroturfed by the publishing industry.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want people pointing out that their product is absolute shit. That's it. This is just basically corporate malfeasance, and not like corporations, like a business that wants to put out a good product that the customer likes. You know, the usual business ethics that we had like 50 years ago. That's not what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
This is a corporation that insists it knows what the customer wants, and it doesn't. And it is engaging in false practices in order to extract from customers financially. So it is of course she's going to get shit, and this is exactly why she's getting shit.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no point being nice to these people, because the reason why they use this rhetoric is to protect the shoddy product. That's it. They're a bunch of con artists pretending they have a product worth a damn, foisting it on people in ignorance through astroturfing campaigns, and they don't want anybody puncturing their Ponzi scheme. That's it. And they'll use any tactic. And of course, we all know what tactics they love most. You're a racist. You're transphobe. You're a misogynist. You have internalized misogyny. You're a handmaiden. You're a pick-me. You don't understand nuance. That's all. It's all it is a smokescreen and a shield for corporate malfeasance. I don't know how the book industry is continuing to operate, but they are a hollow smoking crater. Well, actually, I do. Through fraud, through deceit, and through the fact that they inherited a whole bunch of work that a whole bunch of cis white het men did in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and sort of tapering off in the 90s. That's the backlist. They live off the backlist. That's why they can engage in this bullshit. And I am going to detail all the bullshit that the publishing industry engages in. This guy probably, maybe he's too small, maybe he's a true believer, gets a kickback to go attack a woman for pointing out that the publishing industry is creating crap. Right? This is all freaking astroturfed. All right, let's keep going.
Yeah. All right, let's keep going.
And is the fact that she can be just so clearly, obviously, factually incorrect and just wear that right on her sleeve. There's a level of sloppiness here that, to me anyway, seems to indicate that she's just zeroed in on some predetermined conclusion and is willing to blurt out anything that will get her there. And she is this obviously sloppily wrong a lot for fascinating reasons that we will see unfold as the video goes
I would
on.
say a lot of things about the second story, but sloppily wrong is not one of them. Like, I disagree with almost all of her conclusions. I'm not on her side. I don't mean on her side intellectually. I disagree with a lot of the things that she says. I'm on her side in terms of she doesn't deserve crap like this. She doesn't deserve being ganged up on or experiencing the wagons circling or this dude and his aspersions on the quality of her work. Right? That's not deserved.
Yep.
Right?
No, I agree. I mean, like, you know, I haven't watched too many of her videos. I like her content when I watch it.
Yes.
I think that she's basing most of her work on like kind of like, mythological archetypes and like the literature of the past, like the way back, not like, the fucking Stephen King, but going way back, And I appreciate that. I think that she probably doesn't think that what she's engaging in is political at all. I think that she's concerned with the craft. But the problem is that, again, like I said at the beginning of the video, she has made the terrible mistake of being critical of the thing you can never criticize, which is the fact that a lot of the people that are in the industry are just not good at their job. And that means that she cares about meritocracy. So, but
And
okay.
can you realize how absolutely perfect a narrative that meritocracy is immoral and a function of toxic masculinity is to people who don't want to own their failures, or con artists or fraudsters or thieves? Like, it is the perfect narrative. It's morally, I'm being moral by presenting a subpar product. And if you have your merit, your desire for a good product, that is patriarchy. That is privilege. That's entitlement. Like, so we're supposed to consume slop because it's self-righteous to be taken advantage of. It's self-righteous for the con artists to take advantage of us because merit is patriarchal. Okay.
All right. So I'm going to keep going. But first, I just want to say this guy thinks that he's like scoring points, but he literally hasn't really made any arguments yet. He just promised that she's about to like, completely collapse any second now. Like he keeps saying, I'll prove it. I'll prove it. I'll prove it. But he hasn't said anything other than the one time where he said, well, yeah, there's plenty of villainous examples, brings up shit from 20 years ago, and claims it's recent. So anyway, no arguments yet. Just a lot of like veiled insults.
Like peeling back layers on an onion, I guess. And speaking of sloppiness, just watch what comes next. It's weird.
What I mean is that the clear moral judgment and acceptance that the villain character is morally bad in some major significant way is a critical part of making a villain.
Now, obviously, this isn't true. A villain does not need to be evil. The audience does not need to be able to judge it as morally bad in some major significant way. The only thing it needs to be able to do is provide an obstacle for the protagonist.
What?
No, villains should be wrong. Antagonists should be oppositional. And in fact, a lot of times antagonists are wrong too. They're not evil per se.
What is this? Like, you don't know words, sir. These words, you don't know them. A villain is villainous. That's why they're called a villain. The word you are searching for is an antagonist, and she's not talking about all antagonists needing to be villains. She's saying villains need to be villains because that is the essence of a villain. That is why they are called a villain and not an antagonist. Like, what? At this point, it's like, this conversation is not possible with you, sir. It's not. Like, you are not willing to use a dictionary. You are not willing to abide by fair rules of engagement when it comes to argument. Like, so where do we go from here, sir? Where? Because the land that you are arguing in is not a land I recognize. It's a land where words mean whatever he wants them to mean in order to win an argument, and apparently something alt-right.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Okay, so right now, guys, we have to accept the premise that we can't distinguish between a villain and an antagonist, which is the first thing that she talked about, I believe. She said that there can be villainous forces and antagonistic forces. Well, there can be villains and antagonistic forces and antagonists, right?
Yeah.
And she made the distinction. Now he is forcing the distinction to collapse. And I'm like, no, this is a load-bearing distinction, sir. You cannot collapse this. Otherwise, we are now deviating from anything that she said. And we are going into a very strange land, an upside-down land, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Black Cat Red Ed says he's confusing antagonist with villainy. I don't know that. I think you're being really charitable. So if he's saying this, okay, so it comes down to one of two things. Either he's stupid and doesn't know the difference between a villain and an antagonist, or he's being maliciously misleading and he is intentionally conflating the terms in order to make the person he is criticizing appear stupid. And I don't think that he's that stupid. I think that he knows that an antagonist is not the same as a villain, even though he says villains don't have to be evil. I mean, he may not have a moral foundation. Like, if you don't know that evil is real, if you don't think there's any such thing as evil and everything is postmodern and everything is like, hey, bro, it's just your opinion. Like, in my opinion, I should be able to take all your stuff, because I was deprived of stuff, like, for some reason, I want your stuff. And that's just my opinion, bro. It doesn't make me evil. And he might even say, oh, yeah, that makes sense. I guess you want my stuff then. But the reality is that that's evil. And that should be based in something,
Well, I don't like to feel good. I like to feel evil. Oh.
Yeah. Be like Skeletor. Well, don't be like Skeletor. He's evil. But understand that go ahead, Allison. I'm sorry.
She started by defining this. Have we forgotten?
No, she did. She said that there are antagonists that are villains and there are antagonists that are nature itself. Like it could be like in Twister, the tornadoes were not evil. They were just tornadoes. They were nature, in The Revenant, the movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, like the guy who left him to his death was evil because he was being a self. Even if he had like a reason for it, it was an evil thing to do, But the bear that like mauled him was not evil. It was just an antagonist. It was just like a temporary antagonist because it was a mother defending her cubs and it wasn't concerned with whatever his plight was. It was a bear,
Yeah. Well, regardless, she made very clear that what she was talking about. And now he has collapsed the definition that she made very clear at the beginning of this. Therefore, we are no longer discussing her video at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like whatever he's saying after this point, what minute is this now?
About 8 minutes in, 7.5.
Okay, so this is about an hour long. So 52.5 minutes of this has absolutely nothing to do with what the second story said.
Yeah, his premise jumped the shark, and now it's free reign. Now that he's created the new, let's say, baseline presumption, he can like criticize at his heart's content based on that initial presumption. So, all right.
Oh yeah, let's go.
As long as it does that, then bam, by definition, it's an antagonist. And do you know who else thinks this? She does, because she says as much earlier in the video, twice.
Basically, antagonist really only means that the hero or protagonist.
So he puts a footnote at the bottom here where it says she uses the words villain and antagonist interchangeably and even identifies them as the synonyms earlier in the video. Well, they can be, like, a villain is a kind of antagonist. But again, you don't care about that.
Does she know?
This is what he claims. I think she's being pretty clear, yeah.
Yeah, from what I remember, she was clear that yes, a villain can be an antagonist, but not all antagonists are villains. That's the
Yes.
point that she's making in her argument. And that of the subtype of antagonist that is a villain, she considers them poorly written now. We haven't even gotten to why. I'm actually curious to remember what it was she said.
Okay.
Let's keep going.
Has to have some significant resistance to his ultimate narrative goal. A villain is really just the opposition to the hero's goal.
She also made it clear that there can be a lot of variation.
Well, wait, no, that's not wrong though. So the villain is the opposition to the hero's goal, but an antagonist is also an obstacle. Well, it's an obstacle, and it may not necessarily be opposition. So she's not wrong, unless you're just like nitpicking for the sake of nitpicking at this point.
For the sake of it, to support his argument that she apparently considers villains and antagonists to be the same thing, even though she clearly states they're not.
Yeah.
Right? He's just trying to rules lawyer this to death.
Yeah, really.
How the frick do we have a conversation like this? But whatever. Let's keep going.
My God. Anyway.
What an antagonist is.
This can take a whole assortment of forms.
And that the antagonist doesn't need to even be another person.
For that reason, you can get away with things like the environment being the antagonist in disaster movies, or the protagonist himself being his own worst enemy in certain kinds of dramatic stories.
Mr. God, are you arguing that she thinks that the environment is a villain? Because that's what you're saying. That's what you're attributing to her now. I swear to God, this is just deceitful.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at this point, she is a...
well, let me see. I can jump ahead to...
Yeah,
I think I want to get to the end of... Okay, let's get to the next bit. So, let me see. Literary criticism. Okay, 10. Let's go like right here. I think it's right here.
Not be true at the same time. And I think that is consequential. It's enough to at least start to suggest, to me anyway, that there are not a lot of precise concepts underpinning her discussion. That maybe even this isn't literary analysis as much as an airing of hazily understood grievances. If you're not, you'll probably get there. Just
oh, yeah, I'm just so intelligent. You guys you're not there yet, but you will be.
Yeah, they love going here.
Mm-hmm. She's obviously like a bigot of some kind. I just need to show you all. It's like an onion.
Stick around. A lot of what follows, or at least right after this, is just kind of a meandering reiteration of her two main points. That evil villains are an important part of storytelling, and that stories these days just don't have them. So I don't think we need to rehash all that along with her, right?
Well, let me see though, Allison. Is that true? And look, I'm not talking about Star Wars or some shit from 20 years ago. I mean, now. Like, is there let's say, a lack of stories that actually have real villains in them, or at least real conflict or stakes? Because conflict is what I think she's talking about, like in terms of
ultimately,
like the conflict. Because I think that the problem with modern stories, and I don't read a lot of anything new. I've been reading like Starship Troopers, like Heinlein, not the movie. I've seen that many times. And but yeah, like I think that most modern stories seem to be more like soap operas. Like they have relational, like it's like a relational web or something. Yeah, go ahead, get into it.
Yeah, my operational versus relational web modalities in my analysis of literature. All right, 100%. I mean, I'm not going to be here and be like concerned about necessarily having evil villains, because that's not really my thing, but conflict. Yeah, 100%. Modern fiction has a real problem with conflict. The stories and the reason why is they want it to be female centered. They want the woman to ultimately be vindicated, and they do not want her to suffer. So what I've been seeing is this interesting, actually it's really obvious if they have like male characters, because the male characters will suffer. They'll endure things. They'll be making decisions with stakes, but they're categorically denied any position in the climax because that is reserved for the women. And at the climax, the solution is not any kind of actual fight or conflict of any sort. It is some kind of collaborative communal thing that ultimately vindicates the female characters. Even though it's the male characters that are bringing the grit and the tone and the atmosphere of danger, they don't get a place in the climax. And this is actually terrible writing, because you don't want to spend chapters with a character who's making decisions that you care about, who is enduring suffering that you care about and injustice that you care about, and have that character locked out of the climax. Why? Because you feel like your time is wasted. You don't want to waste your audience's time. When you spend time on things, and this is the closer you get to the beginning, the more time you spend on something, the more it should be at the climax or somehow involved at the climax. That's where Chekhov's gun comes from. You don't put something in your story that doesn't actually do something for the ultimate climax of your story. That's bad writing. So their lack of being able to create a proper conflict with the characters they want to focus on, which are female characters, means that their stories are disjointed, they're poorly paced, they have tonal problems, their characters are bland and disinteresting, and their climaxes they're not. They just fall flat. It's bad writing. And it's bad writing because it's pressured by ideology to be something it isn't. Now, I don't think that she would say stuff like this. I'm not sure if she's done quite the level of analysis that I've done. And she just wants more feisty villains. But like you were saying, I think it's the conflict that needs to be brought back. It is the main characters need to suffer and sacrifice at the climax so that the decision they make and the sacrifices they make and the ultimate conclusion of your story means something. You haven't wasted everybody's time getting to that point. And it doesn't have to be like huge. A good writer can make someone dropping a hanky be a huge climax because they've set everything up to that point. They haven't wasted your time. They've clearly stated the stakes of someone dropping a handkerchief. They can make it work. But because they have all these ideological pressures on them, it basically distorts the story into a pile of mush with no conflict or conflict that isn't satisfying. So that's what I would say this is coming from. And she's identified a lack of villains. I think it's deeper than that, because you can still have conflict without having like evil villains. You can have conflict with having evil villains that you can understand their motives, and yet they're still evil. Like there's a whole wide range of things. And the problem isn't necessarily the lack of villains. It's the fact that they don't want to see consequences. Okay.
All right.
I'm done.
I got a super chat from Serathis for 1,000 puffs. I don't know what that is, but sounds like Harry Potter money. And he says, speaking of conflict and villains, my friend just finished her dark fantasy fairy tale horror. Check out Fae Fire by Lumen Moon on Royal Road. Well, thank you, Serathis. Hopefully it has some conflicts and villains or antagonists in it or something. I'm sure it's good. I'm sure it's good. All right, so let's move on.
But there are a couple places where she just really tilts her hand and shows the kind of literary analysis she's up to. Like this, for example.
The idea of evil as an important aspect of a villain character has been shunned more and more by the pseudo-intellectual literary elite, who will tell you that.
Oh, so she's throwing shade at I think the same people that Allison is talking about. I just want to look at these headlines. The banality of evil in fiction. Just in case you don't feel like reading this whole article, let's get this out of the way. Don't write a character who's evil because he has an uncontrollable lust for power. That shit is boring. There's no story in it. Okay.
Wait a second. But you can propose that every single man has a moment where the invisible patriarchy touches his brow as he's a young suckling infant, and he is like inculcated with the evil of oppressing women. Like, I don't know. Dude, I think your entire ideology has the most simplistic, one-dimensional understanding of evil in all of human history. And
Yep.
you don't have no room to throw shade.
Or by the pseudo-intellectual
The de-demonization of evil. Banality aren't satra. The problem of evil will be fundamental question of post-war intellectual life in Europe as death became the fundamental problem after the last war. Okay, so the de-demonization of evil. All right.
literary elite who will tell you that black cloak villainy, villains who are obviously very bad, is childish and unrealistic.
This signals to me that she is not only out of touch with the literary community, but totally uninterested in engaging with it. Because what she does here amounts to taking a drive-by shit on it. She calls
Yeah,
it
you
a,
deserve it.
Yeah, they do deserve it.
Like, what? She doesn't have to engage in it.
Why
in
aren't
order
they
to
engaging
drive
with us? I don't know, because you just called her a fucking racist, white supremacist in like the first 5 minutes. It's obvious that you don't really want to like hear what she has to say, but okay. Anyway, I got a super chat from Richard. Richard Bier gives us $5. Thank you, and says, so the future of writing is that Morning Glory Milking Farms is to be an epic of the Lord of the Rings status, given that Violet's quest for authentic Starbucks coffee is right up there with Frodo's quest to bring the One Ring to Mount Doom to destroy it to free the world from the greatest evil of that time, because apparently it is a similar level of evil to have to fill one Starbucks cup with gas station coffee.
Okay, so to explain this, the motivation of the character in Morning Glory Milking Farm to engage with the industrial extraction process of Minotaur milking is that she can't afford Starbucks coffee and she has to have convenience store coffee.
And that's literally in the story of the book.
Yes.
Of this
Yes, that's the motive.
best-selling romance novel that women are reading right now. Morning Glory Milking Farm.
Well, who knows if it's really best-selling? I could probably find out. Actually, no, I can find out right
Anybody
now.
that's writing about the fucking Lori Penny is a New York Times bestseller. Anybody who basically writes a book that says the right things will become a New York Times. It'll make the New York Times list. So
Yeah.
like we said, the industry itself is cooked.
Yeah, I mean, there potentially this is just purchased. It's entirely possible. I can actually tell you. I think I can actually tell you how much Morning Glory milking farm really sold. But yeah, it'll take a moment. So why don't we continue?
I'll just continue in the meantime.
Pseudo-intellectual literary elite, a term that in and of itself might just tell us everything we need to know about who she is and what she's up to here.
So it's more of this like suggesting. Like they are pseudo-intellectual. So what? He's like, oh, well, this says everything we need to know about her. How many take a drink every time he says this is telling us everything we need to know about what she really thinks without him actually saying what he thinks she thinks, because he can't say that because he doesn't know what she actually thinks, because that's mind reading and nobody can do that. So instead, he has to constantly imply. It's so dude, I want to punch him in the face because he's so indirect. He's so
in Minecraft.
No, I don't want to hurt anybody.
No,
but I could.
Only in Minecraft. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
On top of that, she claims that they just don't like the idea of an evil villain or of evil being an important part of a villain's character. And this just seems dumb on its face, right? Like, the literary community is not one monolithic voice. There are a lot of different people who say a lot of different things.
Not all pseudo-intellectual elitist writers. Okay, bucko. You just committed a fallacy. Looks like I win the argument. You just made a generalization. Even though she just said, here's a whole bunch of examples. Okay.
And, a lot of times they disagree with each other. So when somebody claims that an intellectual or academic community is just one thing and it's one thing you don't like,
she didn't claim that. Again, he's arguing against somebody who isn't even there.
seems kind of
They don't disagree. They don't disagree on who their enemy is.
No, that's true. They don't disagree on who the enemy is. But he's saying, oh, they're not a monolith. She's like plastering all of them. No, she said, here are several pseudo-intellectual elites writing about this. He didn't say it's everybody. That's like a ridiculous straw man. And he thinks that he just is a gotcha. And again, he still hasn't said anything of substance. I don't know if you guys are paying attention. He doesn't say anything of substance for an hour and 15 minutes.
Intellectual rant, right? Maybe, I don't know. Seems a little wrong to me. But on top of that, literary critics and most modern storytellers seem to be pretty in love with evil characters. I already gave some examples, right? They just kind of prefer them to be fleshed out and nuanced instead of one-dimensional cartoon characters.
No, this guy's not fleshed out in nuance. I'm sorry. Homelander is given. I don't even want to. It's only gotten worse from what I heard. That this guy, dude, really? Okay. Anyway.
So what seems to be happening here is Lane, and that's her name. I don't know if I've mentioned it yet. Lane is conflating two different ideas. First, the idea of an evil character in general, which can be done very well, and the concept of what she calls black cloak villainy, which, while never clearly defined, evokes a flat character who just does bad things because the story needs bad things to happen. Now, who knows what exactly she means?
Wait, are you saying that the Joker is like deep and nuanced? Because I didn't watch, like, I don't know who these other characters are, but anyway, I'll just keep going. I think that's a stretch. The Joker is he's actually pretty.
Well, you might be talking about the new Joker, like the film that did really well.
No. The image is from The Dark Knight.
Oh, okay.
So it's the Dark Knight. It's the Heath Ledger Joker, who is sort of a force of nature in the movies. Like you never learn anything about him. He has no story. There is no history. If Arthur Fleck Joker, which is the Joaquin Phoenix Joker, that's basically the hero of that story. And it's actually a pretty good examination of what I was saying when I said that we are like the subversion is becoming inverted. It goes from subversion to inversion. So you go from seeing, like, if you look at the Joker as a good example, you go from seeing like Cesar Romero's Joker from the old 1960s Batman show, and he's like, I'm going to rob banks and steal things, and I'm going to do it with like a theme. I'm going to have a motif. Everything's going to be jokes and funny. And ooh, look, here's my, here's the I don't know, the Jack in the Box with the punching glove inside of it, and that was fun. But like it was a show for families, and so you needed the Joker to be like just a bad guy, but like in a playful way. But like still a bad guy. Like there was, he was never going to be redeemed. He was just going to get out of the jail or the Arkham Asylum and then go off to do more crimes. And over time, they made him more violent. When the Jack Nicholson one came out and he was like killing people and like, spraying their faces with acid. And then like time passed and they gave us the Heath Ledger Joker, which was almost like a complete like agent of chaos, almost like an avatar of something beyond human, because you don't learn anything about him at all. I mean, even the Jack Nicholson one had a backstory, even though he was a bad guy before that. But then you get like the Arthur Fleck one, and it's a complete inversion. It's like, well, how do we make him appealing and even sympathetic? And they did that with the Joker movie. At least the first one. I didn't see the sequel, but he's not a hero, but he's the protagonist. That's what I'm saying. He's not a hero, but he is the person we follow in the story. Right? He's the person that is at least laid out to be the most relatable. And he was like, how many memes from the Joker movie came out where people were like sympathizing with him, where he says like, what was there was a few memes of him saying like, this is how I feel and I don't care what you think about it or something like that. And he was complaining about like the system. And it was like it was almost like a call to revolution in the movie from like people that are like frustrated and stuff. D Wood says that Joker movie is a warning to society to the dangers of mistreating the average man, but they didn't get the message at all. Yeah, but I think even the director didn't like how people reacted to his film, which is why the second one subverted the first one, from what I heard. I didn't watch the second one, but it was like the director, Fordelou or whatever it was called. Yeah, he didn't like that there were men that related to the story. So the director, he subverted his own story because he didn't like the reaction. So, but anyway, I'm getting into the weeds. But I'm just looking at the evolution of how the character, changed. And I mean, I don't even know what they'll do with the next time they adapt Joker. But anyway,
who just does bad things because the story needs bad things to happen. Now, who knows what exactly she means by either idea? Her use of language is pretty loose and slippery up to this point. But I have a feeling that this distinction really gets to the heart of what the literary elites actually have a problem with. It has more to do with a flattening of antagonists into non-characters than with antagonists being evil in and of itself. But instead of addressing this distinction and the nuance that can and probably does take place in the literary community, she just says they all don't like evil, and that's just so very stupid. In fact, to see this disconnect between what they actually say and what she says they say, all we have to do is just take a little peek at the sources she flashes across the screen. She really likes to say that she's into sources and likes to back her stuff up with sources. But yeah, just watch. One of them is a pretty involved article about how we view the defendants at Nuremberg, so not about literature at all, and just kind of...
The D David is, I don't know if you've looked at these papers, but
Me? No.
yeah, like he's using these as his reference. She was using them as her reference. Yeah.
Okay.
So one is
all right,
about.
Well, let's see what he has to say.
All right.
Like, really.
All right.
Describing how we understand evil when it manifests in real life. One kind of defies the terms good and evil, but not saying that evil doesn't exist as much as positing that those are inadequately broad labels. Honestly, I wasn't a huge fan of this one anyway. One was a full-on book that, according to its synopsis anyway, seems to be about the semantics of evil and how the term can obscure our understanding of good and bad deeds and demonize those we don't like. So kind of an important thing to talk about, and I don't see that as really claiming that evil doesn't exist.
Well, I don't know what this book is about, but like...
The Myth of Evil?
It's called The Myth of Evil, Demonizing the Enemy by Philip Cole. I don't know what this book is about, but I would ask, would an evil person want you to think that they were evil? Or would they make a defense for their actions? They not necessarily see them as good, but make the defense for them as justified, even if they are evil actions. Do we take that person's view of their own actions at its face, or do we measure it against some kind of objective standard to determine if it's good or not? Like, how do we know what good is? Like, how do we know what good is? I mean, I don't know if you know what I'm saying, but like, okay.
No, yeah. I actually think that this really applies to the work that I'm doing, but I'm going to let you continue.
Well, I got an anecdote. So, like, when the Black Lives Matter protests were going on, and this was like in 2020, and I was still living in Chicago, and everything was on fire in Chicago. They got to a point where the bridge over the Chicago River, the bridges were being raised because they didn't want people going in there. It was like raising the drawbridge on like a fortress to prevent the loop from being burned. And there was chaos in the streets. And I was talking with someone about them that was sympathetic to the Black Lives Matter riots. And I asked them, like, why do you think this is acceptable? Because like this is going to, innocent people are being affected. People's businesses are being destroyed. People who had nothing to do with this, like people boarded up, they got their businesses' windows broken into, things were set on fire, and they had to board up their windows and all of their entrances, and they spray painted, "We support Black Lives Matter," which is the equivalent of putting goat's blood outside of your door so that when God comes through Egypt, he doesn't take your firstborn child during Passover. And I was like, why do you think this is acceptable? Why do you think it's okay for people who have nothing to do with whatever the grievance is? This is like setting aside the fact that you haven't even considered whether or not this grievance is at all justified, which is a whole other conversation that probably should have taken place before we started burning everything down. But why do you think this is okay? And they would say, well, I think that it's important that people get the message, and that I hope that what will happen, or no, they would say maybe what will happen is that after everything is burned down, something new will rise from the ashes like the phoenix. They literally said something like that, right? No, it was a woman who said this. I'll say that much. But like if I said to her, that's evil, right? They wouldn't believe me. They wouldn't think of it that way. So this is what I mean when I say, like, how do we know what? Because I feel like when these people had this conversation about writing about evil, in order for you to write about evil, or good for that matter, you have to like be able to objectively identify what it is. And in order for you to identify what it is, you have to be able to acknowledge that it exists at all, like that there is such a thing as good and there is such a thing as evil, and that these things can be objectively observed and measured, right? And anyone who says that none of these things are real, they're not going to be able to tell stories about these things because they don't see them as real. So like you will have people justifying destroying property and businesses and livelihoods because they feel like it's important in order to get to something else that they don't know what it looks like, but they think it's better than where we are now. It's like utopian people who have utopian thinking, which they think is going to lead to some ultimate good, can do the most horrendous things, but they won't acknowledge them as horrendous because they don't know what evil even looks like, because they never considered it could be real. So that's why I started by asking those questions. Like, if you ask the devil, are you evil? Would the devil say yes? I don't think he would, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just interesting, like what you're saying, because from what I can see, they will say things like, if you don't buy into my utopian dream, that makes you evil, or your intentions, you're completely defined by your intentions. So if the person with the most beautiful dream of the world, no way to actually enact that dream. Like the person that you talked to had a beautiful dream about the world rising from the ashes of this destruction, and that makes her good. And you saying, well, look at all of the pain you're causing, makes you bad because you are not buying into the beautiful dream. Right? Even if the people who have the beautiful dream do nothing practical to create it in the world, right? The fact that they have it makes them more moral than you. Their intentions make them, like, you don't, like, the way that I'm seeing this, it's that whole, it's not about the nail. It's not about the world or the actions in it or whether or not you're, torture murdering someone. It's about your intentions.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what matters.
Yeah.
So your actions, as long as your intentions are for the greatest utopia, the greatest good, any actions that you take to get there are not evil, right? But if you say, hey, you're murdering kids and throwing them into vats of acid in order to get to your utopia, maybe you shouldn't do that. You become evil because you don't have the same beautiful intentions. So everything is about beautiful intentions. And you don't actually have to do anything. You just have to intend it, right? And then see other people intending it. And together you will intend it. And somehow it will be. And anybody who doesn't agree with what you are willing to pursue in order to, I don't even know the connection between burning stores down and whatever utopia this woman was envisioning, invagining. Lord. Oh God, that was accidental. I don't know the connection, but
slip.
apparently there is one. And I'm
Well-
evil for pointing out that there may not be one.
Well, I'm using it to point out that people like that is evil, but like we have to be able to recognize it as such. And even though she would probably never really, it wouldn't even click because there would just be this utopian idea. It's like they measure the success of their ideas not on the outcomes, but on their intentions. It's like, oh, my intention is this. So if it doesn't work, well, I didn't fail because my intentions are the same. There's just something else must have gone wrong somewhere along the way. The suffering, it's not what I meant to do. So anyway, what I'm getting off base here, but I think ultimately what the second story, she probably could benefit from asking the question, because I think this would break most of it open right off the bat if you just say, okay, so do we believe evil exists in the world? Is evil real? And if it is, what does it look like? Like, is it just a mustache twirling guy that puts a woman on the train tracks? Not all. Well, sometimes. But it's also a guy stabbing a woman randomly on the subway. A guy setting another man on fire because he's asleep and he just felt like doing it, pushing someone on the train tracks. That happens. That's a real thing that happens. Can we call that evil? I mean, could it be someone saying, you know what? You're not allowed to protest this thing. I'm going to freeze your bank accounts. I'm going to take your home from you. I'm going to allow the squatters that have taken up residence in your home because you were away for the weekend. I'm gonna let them stay there and you can't have your house back. Is that evil? Can we call it evil? I would say yes. So then we know it's real. So then if that's real, then good is real. What the governments did to people during COVID, I would say that's evil. Why not?
Yeah, I just don't know if we can. But
I know, but I'm just saying
it's evil in COVID.
That means that evil is real. This thing that you've been hooked on, this corporatist crony capitalist thing that's going on with our government or governments and corporations. I would say that's evil. It's basically stealing the next generation or following generations, livelihoods away from them. This generation, yeah.
It's basically capitalism. It's capitalism for billionaires.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's communism for the wealthy.
Communism for billionaires and
capitalism for everyone. Well, not capitalism.
Not even capitalism.
Tax serfdom for everyone else. That's the way communism works, by the way. It's always it always ends at a certain per capita income or access to resources, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Communism is always on top, and the labor exploitation is on the bottom. And that does, people will say that sounds like capitalism. Actually, no. When we were the most capitalistic, the average income for CEOs, when we had the most free market, the strongest free market, the average income for CEOs was 20 to 30 times the average worker. Now it's 200 to 300 to 600 times the average worker. And I would also like to point out that the ESG and DEI and feminist lingo has increased alongside that. So corporations have been never more kind and compassionate and concerned than ever before. And CEOs have never made more than the average worker. So, there you go.
Yeah.
Let's keep going.
All right. Let's keep going.
It's kind of how you weaponize it. The only one that directly addressed fictional villains, the topic of this whole thing, was actually about how to make super evil villains interesting. I mean, it can sound like he was anti-evil villain if you only read the first few sentences. Maybe that's what she did. But if you go on, it becomes very obvious that that's not what it's about. He actually seems to be a fan of evil villains. Oh, and by the way, just as an interjection, Anthony did talk a lot more about her sources and how they don't say what she says they say. I didn't want to rehash all that, but it's kind of funny. So you can go watch his video.
What a
interested in that.
surprise! You don't want to rehash the stuff that probably contradicted what you're putting into her mouth.
Yeah, again, not saying anything. Not saying anything. Okay, so 1404. Let me just we're talking about postmodernism. Okay.
It seems pretty obvious to me that she just has some kind of grudge against the literary elites or storytelling these days. And she just kind of scraped the internet for sources that at a glance appear to validate it. And she just wanted to make that specific point. She wasn't exploring anything. She wasn't trying to refine her ideas or even find out what the literary community thinks about anything. She just needed some screenshots to put on and, show herself and her audience that, everything's just dumb these days, I guess, and nobody likes evil villains. And whether this resulted from her simply not reading those articles or she read them and misrepresented them, because I think one of those two things had to happen, it seems pretty clear that she's operating in bad faith here. And she's just using the literary community as this boogeyman, that she can villainize and talk about how bad things are these days and how stupid everybody is and how postmodern culture is just so vapid, doesn't understand what bad guys are. And if it weren't abundantly clear what she was saying about their stance, if we think that this distinction between black cloak villains and villainy in general is just a misunderstanding because she's bad with words, she acknowledges the distinction and, then just says this.
There might be a case to be made for degrees of nuance depending on the specific story being told, but this mindset isn't apparently referring to degrees of nuance, but rather a complete overhauling of our concept of bad.
So yes, her depiction of literary critics is as crass as nonsensical as it seemed it might have been. And we haven't even begun to see it get bad yet, because just watch what she says after that.
It's not difficult to analyze the progression of thought here. People looked at human characters who weren't evil incarnate and recognized that it was highly improbable for a person, even a villain, to be pure evil, that is 100% evil, which is actually true, yes. But then their conclusion was that evil must not exist, at all. I shouldn't have to explain how fallacious this logic is. It's like saying because mushrooms don't cover the entirety of any surface on which they appear, mushrooms don't exist. It's silly.
Now, this is pretty crazy, right? This whole thing sounds kind of stupid. And I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest that she has never heard anybody use this line of reasoning or anything close to it. But then that's not even really what she's claiming. She says this is the reasoning she concluded they must have used. In fact, she pretty explicitly says that this is how she came up with this summation.
It's not difficult to analyze the progression of thought here.
So she started by somehow deciding that literary critics these days don't think evil exists, and then assumed that this is the only reasoning they could have used to get to the conclusion she decided that they'd come to. It's a pretty flimsy way of putting words into other people's mouths. And if another person's reasoning seems this stupid to you, if you can use an analogy, that gets you to thinking mushrooms don't exist because they can't cover all of something, if that's the credit you're giving somebody, then maybe you just need to take a step back and
wait. Why did? Okay, have you explained how her example doesn't actually relate?
No.
Okay, so he's just basically saying, this is her motivation. It's wrong. This is all he's been doing. Is this is her motivation. It's wrong.
Yeah.
This is he is examining all of this from pure relational web thinking.
That's
is? It. He is.
Yeah, he is.
100%.
Okay. Yeah. This is kind of a lot of gobbledygook too.
We'll move on to the next one if you want.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna move on.
I sense a pattern.
Yeah. So 20 minutes in, it's right about here. I think they're talking about Milton. 2045.
Devil to mirror the ways in which humans refuse to take responsibility for their own evil and villainy. I find it very telling when people call him relatable.
And I think this is starting to nudge us just a little.
All right. So yeah, she's talking about, let me see, Paradise Lost. And that's the story of the the devil, right? Mephistopheles, I think.
Genius of Milton's Satan was that he painted the devil to mirror the ways in which humans refuse to take responsibility for their own evil and villainy.
So Milton wrote Satan. Remember I said earlier, like if you asked the devil whether or not he was evil, would he say yes? And I use the devil, whether you're religious or not. The devil is essentially like, think of it symbolically as being evil incarnate. Like it doesn't know, the devil knows nothing else, right? And so like, what does that look like? It's an interesting question to ask, you know? Like when Jack Kirby created Galactus for the Fantastic Four comics, he started from the premise, like, what does God look like? That was what he was thinking about when he created the character. So it was like, as an artist starts from a question that is extremely like big to think about. So what I say, the same thing about the devil. So Milton wrote the devil as an expression of all the things that human beings don't take, essentially don't take accountability for, because one of the greatest sins that we have as humans is the sin of pride, where we are not able to see the limits of ourselves, right? Because the devil is all about, like, he's the personification of us, of the human desire to see ourselves like gods, like small gods ourselves, right? Like not a part of a larger story, but rather the main characters of our own stories, which is Luciferian in nature. I know that it's like a lot of people are going to agree with that, but that's sort of like how it is symbolically, how it exists. So Milton's Satan is that. He's like an expression of the dark side of humanity, okay?
I find it very telling when people call him relatable.
And I think this is
So she says when people in the Reddit community see Satan and they say, oh, that's relatable, she thinks it's telling because it means that extremely prideful people, extremely arrogant, egotistical people that see themselves as the main characters in their stories are the ones that relate to this the most. And I think that she's sort of like brushing against this reality that this lack of humility is like one of our largest obstacles as human beings. And of course, he is going to completely miss that.
starting to nudge us just a little closer to understanding Elaine and where she's coming from. Even in a story that is ultimately meant to vindicate God and demonize Satan, she can't even get through the parts that are meant to make Satan come off as compelling to set the whole thing up without feeling just viscerally disgusted because that guy is being disobedient and won't take responsibility for his actions. She even calls him...
that's supposed to create visceral disgust.
Yeah. What does obedience mean biblically? I'm just asking the people watching, because if we're going to talk about Milton, and is this Paradise Lost that we're talking about? If we're going to talk about that, we're going to talk about the story of Satan, then we have to like look at it in those terms. So anyway, yeah, something can be like interesting without necessarily being relatable, you know, like, you know, the character in, here's another example of evil, an evil character that's done well. Have you guys ever seen The Mummy, the movie that came out in 1998 or 1999? I think it was 1998 with Brendan Fraser. The Mummy movie, okay? And in the Mummy movie, they bring back the mummy on accident, Imhotep. And Imhotep is basically trying to get all of his canopic jars back so that he can become an immortal mummy. And I guess, like, I think he was just going to like rule the world or something. And so like there was this existential threat that was coming. But the Imhotep character had like an interesting little backstory where he was in love with this woman that was like forbidden, a Naxunamun. He couldn't have her. And so he got caught with her. And that's how he got the mummy's curse. But then he came back and he like was going to just like basically get his shit together. The mummy was evil, but he did have an interesting backstory. But it wasn't necessarily the reason he was evil, because what he was doing was wrong. It was adulterous, right? So he was an evil character that was a little bit compelling because of that. And it was like the thing that gave it a little bit more depth, right? But ultimately, the mummy was evil. Like it was an evil monster, essentially a supernatural monster. So I'm just saying, like, and it's a really good character. Everyone knows Imhotep. Like, that's a great character. So it worked for what it was. Again, that doesn't mean that you're like, oh, I totally relate to that guy, because ultimately he was a simp, and that was what made him into a monster. but it was a pretty good little character. So anyway. Black Cat Red Ed says, hell yes, The Mummy's super fun. Yeah, it's a good movie. The Mummy, not the mommy. All right, anyway.
Dull, which is a pretty horrific insult to Milton's writing if you have any idea of what he was trying to accomplish or what kind of villain the devil was supposed to be in that story. It's not the takedown of modern critics that she seems to think it is. It's an apparently unintentional takedown of Milton's poem. Her commentary has just this feel and vocabulary of somebody who needs everything in their stories to just be purely didactic. It needs to be straight on the nose, literal, no sympathy for the bad guys, complete understanding that the good guys are totally good, and it's meant to get directly to a moral lesson. And
do you think that that's, I don't know if you heard this part, Allison, but do you think that he's misrepresenting her?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
And again, I'm not somebody who agrees with her on everything she says. I think her diagnoses of the problem are not necessarily correct. And I think that it's not just a lack of clearly evil villains, it's a lack of proper conflict in these stories. That's the real problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I would also argue that the people who are doing this definitely have clear villains. In fact, there are some of, like I said, he says they all disagree, like all of these hoi polloi academics, they don't all agree, so they can't be lumped together. Well, they sure as hell agree on the enemy.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
And it's really ironic because they would agree that the enemy is white cis het men, or at least the emergent properties of said. So if you're a white cis het man who denies those emergent properties, I guess you can be provisionally good or part of the social web.
Yeah.
But they still definitely have an enemy and an enemy class. So I don't know. Like you're essentially, she's talking about a villain as defined by their actions. And I guess they don't like that because villains should be defined by having penises.
Mm-hmm.
Or wanting to have a penis.
Yeah, that's another thing too, is that evil isn't necessarily a person, it's a behavior. So like you show a behavior, that's actually the best way to add what you could call nuance or depth to something. Like some evil can be like embodiments, like Smog the dragon. But like the behavior is what you want to show. Like someone who does something bad is like what we're supposed to be using as the evidence. But anyway,
everything at every step of the way needs to reinforce that moral lesson. You can't even get the feel of the bad guys being good, of there being any kind of nuance or appeal there. And trust me, I used to work at a Christian school that used a Becker curriculum, and so I have some sense of what this is like. And if you want another clue,
again, he's doing this thing where she must be a Christian now, which they're evil. There's another villain. There's no nuance there.
Where she's coming from.
If you want someone else's opinion besides my own on that one, you source maniac, try C.S. Lewis's preface to Paradise Lost.
That's pretty telling, right? And I don't mean that Lewis's commentary on the Paradise Lost is no good. But the fact that Lane seems just so entirely oblivious to the entire history of discourse surrounding the poem, and then when she comes up with a source, the one thing she brings up is from a garbage Christian apologist, I find that pretty...
Wait. What was this?
C.S. Lewis is a garbage Christian apologist. You guys heard of C.S. Lewis?
But didn't he just contradict himself?
How so?
Well, go back like 30 seconds or 15. I don't know. Like one sentence, basically.
Okay.
when he began this.
The entire history of discourse surrounding the poem, and then when she comes up with a
No,
source,
a bit further.
Else's
There, just
opinion
start.
besides my own on that one, you source maniac. Try C.S. Lewis's preface to Paradise Lost.
That's pretty telling, right? And I don't mean that Lewis's commentary on the Paradise Lost is no good, but the fact that Lane seems just so entirely
Lewis's comment
oblivious.
is no good. Like he's saying, I'm not saying that C.S. Lewis's commentary on Paradise Lost is no good. Continue, Brian.
Yeah.
To the entire history of discourse surrounding the poem. And then when she comes up with a source, the one thing she brings up is from a garbage Christian apologist. I find that pretty darn interesting.
Yeah.
Did you notice that?
Yes. He at once says, I'm not saying it's not like this
No
guy doesn't have
good,
anything to
But
say,
it's a garbage
but he's
Christian
trash.
apologist.
Yeah.
That's not no good. He's just a garbage person. Like,
Mm-hmm. Well,
is that the extent of his long-term
I wonder
memory?
I wonder what's gonna happen when Greta Gerwig's like Chronicles of Narnia comes out. Is this guy gonna defend it? Probably. I know she's gonna butcher it. So Lewis can be overbearing and myopic, but sheesh. Well, you know what? C.S. Lewis will be remembered. This guy will not. That's all I know. So, I mean, like, you know, some people don't like H.P. Lovecraft's writing style, but we still know who he is. Some people don't like the way that Tolkien writes. Hell, I love those stories, but they're, you know, I read the Silmarillion and it was dense, very dense. And I was like, I don't know that I really got much out of it, but it doesn't matter what I think because Tolkien his work is still, it still exists. In fact, I think that people remember Tolkien and Lewis and Dickens and, you know, Kierkegaard and fucking others, and that before they'll remember him when Martin is gone, when George R. R. Martin is gone. Maybe J.K. Rowling will stick around. So, but anyway, let me jump ahead to the next thing. So yeah, she's okay. So she's defending garbage Christian apologists. He's like he's forming his arguments. Again, I don't know what the second story actually believes. All I know is that she cares about good writing and she cares about archetypal mythological writing. Like she wants to enchant the world. She wants to bring back good stories. And I think that's a noble goal in and of itself. So, oh yeah, that's right. We're gonna get into this thing. This is like 28 minutes in. I don't want this to go for too long. Oh, actually,
it's going long.
I know.
And
I know.
I have a summation of all of this that I can read.
All right, let's get into the next bit about ugliness.
She needs to keep everything extremely rigid. A villain needs to be like this. If you're going to represent the devil and God, it needs to be like this. It has to be culturally kind of
She's extremely rigid, guys. Extremely rigid. Doesn't she know that a villain needs to be a cishet white man?
Mm-hmm.
Or, I mean, this is not rigid at all. We can also identify black and minority men as the cishet white men of whatever minority they're a part of, and they could be evil too.
Black Cat Red Ed says C.S. Lewis was Christian. What are we doing? You know, when you think about it, though, guys, most writers for most of history in the West were Christians, like most of them. So, like everyone that you liked, probably. So, do you think that actually affected their writing? It's just something to think about. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, like if you said, "Oh, well, you know, I like Solzhenitsyn," or "I liked, you know, Charles Dickens," well, guess what? I mean, aside with a few exceptions, like Mary Shelley or something, you know, a lot of these guys, they were Christians. Like most of the people who affected change throughout history in the West were Christians, the founding fathers, etc. You know, so
okay, but
I'm not sure that I'm just saying, like, I'm saying, and I don't think anyone in the chat's doing this, but I'm saying that it's not necessarily a condemnation of their merit. Fucking, you know, Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton was like Christian. I
Okay,
think we have something to thank him for. But anyway,
yeah, I just want to move on to the next part because it's almost 6
I
here.
know.
And she doesn't like anything upending it at all. And I just find that pretty sad. And I find this whole discussion she's giving us pretty unserious. The whole thing just gets way off the rails with her comment about Guillermo del Toro. Because remember what she said about him? To refresh your memory, she said that he, rejects the idea of good and evil as not existent because he insists that
monsters are the true heroes of all monster stories, and monster hunters are the real villains.
And this is pretty darn weird, right? Lane says that Del Toro rejects the idea of good and evil, but then paraphrases him as saying that stories have true heroes and real villains. But, what's more indicative of believing in good and evil than having true heroes and real villains in your story? That's why, according to everything she said so far, Lane can't get enough of stories with clearly defined good guys and...
All right, so just real quick about Guillermo del Toro. This is interesting because it's a really good example of what I'm saying about Homelander and all these other inversions. They're not even subversions anymore. They're inversions of stories. So I think that she made a mistake when she said that Del Toro, Del Toro said, she's quoting him when he says, I think monsters are the real heroes and the hunters are the real villains. I think that what she should have made the argument for was that Del Toro is engaging in an inversion of these things, it can be fun to play with, but it becomes the only thing that he does. And I like Del Toro's movies for the most part, but there is a pattern of daddy issues and man bad in a lot of his movies. Even his last did you see the Frankenstein movie, Allison, that Del Toro made? It was a recent one.
Yeah. No, I didn't. Actually, I watched for a few. You know what happened? Is I thought the color palettes he was using were boring.
Yeah.
Or no, I didn't find I'm weird, all right? But if I'm going to watch a movie,
I know.
I want to have
I know. Yes, you're weird.
In case you guys didn't know.
Newsflash. Allison is weird.
Okay, so if I it's weird because I'm okay with noir if it's black and white. But if you're going to put color in your movie, it better be considered. And
right.
I don't know. I think the Frankenstein movies just felt like it was all over the damn place. And it got exhausting. So
it's it's the same thing that he's done. It was Pan's Labyrinth. It was Hellboy. It was, I don't know about Shape of Water. I didn't watch that. That was just too much for me. And it was the same thing. It's basically like, we're going to take the monster, whatever it is, we're going to make it the hero, and then we're going to take the humans and make them the real monsters. And that's basically what all of his movies have been. And it's fine, once in a while, but it's not really a new thing to do that. And so I would, with Frankenstein, I was actually kind of pissed off because he actually created a backstory for Victor Frankenstein that wasn't in the book at all, where he was adopted by this abusive dad that was shitty to him and potentially killed his mother early on. And so Victor Frankenstein's got mommy issues and his dad is he doesn't know his biological father. But in the book, even fucking Mary Shelley, who is a hardcore feminist, by the way, the daughter of Mary Wollstonecraft, one of the original feminists, if not the original feminist, even she wrote Victor Frankenstein's father as not just sympathetic, but a pillar of his community that was a really good man. And that the story of Frankenstein was more it was man playing God kind of a thing. Because Mary Shelley was kind of into orgies and weird shit. But even that, Del Toro was no, this isn't anti-male enough for me. So he took it to the next step. And that, I thought the Frankenstein movie was well made and everything. I don't have an issue with that. I thought it was fine. But in terms of the pattern of things that he does, it's just a straight up inversion in every. And look, I don't think the Frankenstein monster was meant to be evil. No, I'm not saying that. But the truth is that the way that the book portrays Victor Frankenstein and the monster, they're tragic figures. But the monster does get violent, it's more a product of his circumstances. You know, he's like it's sort of like man versus nature, except the monster is unnatural, but it's not necessarily an evil monster. No, but it is like an antagonist to, because Victor Frankenstein is the main character in the book, really. But anyway, my thing is that Del Toro had to have a villain in his story, so he does end up making Victor the villain, and he actually makes him more of a worse person than he is in the book because he needed to send that home. So, and the monster is super noble and forgives him and everything else. So like that's just kind of like what Del Toro does all the time, you know, and but it is like an inversion that he's doing. Frankenstein monster was never meant to be evil. $2 for the senior sticks. Thank you. Man v nature v science. Yeah. Yeah, he did take Victor's backstory to left field. I know. If anyone was the villain, it's Victor. Yeah, but that would be for playing God, which would basically be the thing that created the monster to begin with. But then they gave him like personality flaws in the movie that were like, he wasn't like that. So they took it to, and then, and here's another thing about the movie, Allison. You didn't see the Frankenstein movie, but the way they portray the woman in it, holy shit, she is insufferable. She is like the worst character because they made her a girl boss in the Victorian days or whatever age it was. Absolutely cringe. She was so cringe. She was so noble. Anyway,
I think
yeah, we can wrap it up.
I'm gonna say something that's we could go. We can go as long as you wish, just not what no.
I don't want to go too much longer though. I do want to get into where she talks about how we used to make villains look ugly. And he hates that, but I mean, I think she's basically like saying, why don't we have like these kind of archetypal, you know, villains like hags, like witches, things like that. And well, where this guy goes with his counter argument's kind of wild, but go ahead, Alice. What were you going to say?
Well, what I was going to say is I think as a woman, I can't fucking stand girl bosses. Like I think you know that the Marvels had more of a male audience than female.
Yes, I know.
Even
flopped horrifically, and it was like men were still 60% of the ticket sales.
Yeah, but I think that's even more than normal, like our Marvel audiences. That was the thing that I thought was interesting. I'm pretty sure that the Marvels had a larger male audience than a female audience. And I think it's underestimated how sick women are of this shit. And I'm like looking at all of this and I'm like, yeah, I don't have the vasopressin necessary to tolerate this crap. I want to slap the shit out of this person in Minecraft. I'm not even gonna watch this.
Okay. I want to get into the ugliness thing.
Okay.
So let me see. Is it here?
Actually goes back and expounds on this idea of ugliness being a sign of evil.
That has a way of metastasizing into the rest of your character. This used to be frequently depicted in children's stories with ugly villains. It conveyed to children that evil is a thing that poisons the entire person. You can acknowledge that the person who became the villain began often as a normal, regular person. But that acknowledgement cannot negate the core of the villainy, which is that it is bad.
Now, this is an incredibly weird and gross thing to do, right? Identifying ugliness as a sign that someone is evil. Now, I know that she probably doesn't mean that all ugly people are bad. In fact, if you break down the text of what she said word for word, she never even technically said that evil literally makes people ugly.
So he acknowledges that she's not trying to say that unattractive people are bad. But now we're going to get the turn, right? The twist. I think the idea is with children's stories, though, you have to understand that you're telling stories to children. So you want to give something of a simplistic impression, right? And I like the idea of describing kind of like mythological evil as ugly as well in many cases. Like what are ogres? and orcs and goblins and these other like creatures that are kind of human but not, and witches and hags. They're supposed to be unattractive because that's part of what makes them scary, so that children know not to, so it's like letting them know like this is bad. Also, bad people
Don't
that
behave
have bad
like them.
habits tend to like degenerate themselves. People who keep their appearances up by like living healthy lives might tend to look a little bit better. So it's not like completely divorced from reality.
She just said that bad metastasizes into the rest of your character and that depicting villains as ugly helps convey this to children. But I don't think this little technicality gets her off the hook. Because I'm sorry, expressing this connection to children will have a negative effect on them. Young people have all kinds of feelings about their appearance, whether they're slow to learn grooming habits, grow through awkward stages, or are actually perceived as more homely than
How
their
young are
peers.
you freaking
Most-
talking about? Because most
Yeah.
young people don't actually worry about their appearance until they start hitting puberty.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Going to be self-conscious about some aspect of their appearance. Too many will experience some level of teasing or even bullying about it, and that digs deep. So why in the world would you make this worse by projecting ugliness onto evil characters? Even if no child directly thinks, I'm unattractive, therefore I must be evil, this idea can only exacerbate any feeling they have that something's wrong with them because of their looks. Now, look, again, to be fair, Lane never says that this connection between evil and ugliness is real, nor that it should be literally expounded upon as real in fiction. But that's the problem. Metaphors work on the level of insinuation. So why keep pumping insinuations about ugliness and being bad into the heads of kids who are already experiencing a constant swirling mess of doubts about how they look, how other people
What
see them?
are you
and what
freaking
that all
talking about? There are no. This is just gobbledygook. Well, that's the problem. She's not explicitly making. That's the big problem. It's the implicit, and also these kids may not be making these connections, but they still are making these connections. Okay, all right. When you figure out what it is you are actually proposing, sir, lay it on us. Until then, be gone with your self-contradictory nonsense.
By that logic, does that mean that an attractive evil
Logic.
person would make attractive people think they're evil?
Huh, you're right. What about attractiveness
Well, we already do that now,
bias?
don't we?
Yes,
we do that
do.
now. What Shrek? Who is the villain in Shrek? I mean, I know he's short,
Farquaad?
but like Farquaad, but he was supposed to
He's
be
also
like,
sort of ugly.
yeah, but I mean, wasn't there like a Prince Charming in there too?
Yeah, there was a Prince Charming, but he's more like an idiot.
Yeah,
I think.
exactly. So they were inverting. That was an inversion. Shrek was the ogre, but he was the good guy. And of course, because he was a good guy, I think DreamWorks had to like make it a little bit softer so it didn't look too ugly. But
also he was a good guy because of his actions.
yes,
Let's be
yes,
honest.
of course. Yeah, of course.
It wasn't because he was not he's an
Hunchback
ogre,
of Notre Dame. Same thing.
Yeah. Okay, so
yeah.
My dude, yes, you're right. Like, what about making attractive people feel self-conscious about their looks by making attractive people evil? Right? I mean, I think we've pretty much covered all the bases with evil. We have attractive evil, we have mundane evil, and we have ugly evil. So, I don't know. Like, I think evil is sufficiently diverse.
Mm-hmm.
This is a non-starter.
I got another really good good comment. I think we can wrap it up here. Where
No,
somebody
I
mentioned.
want to.
Oh, you want
I
to
wanna
finish
read my
this
thing.
section? Oh yeah,
No,
I know.
you
Okay,
can.
but somebody,
All right.
okay, real quick. Somebody made a comment that I'm trying to find now, but it was about Roald Dahl, the guy who wrote Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Witches and stuff. And he basically made he had a blip about the physiognomy of evil, the rudiments of physiognomy. I found it. And he was basically saying that ugly people that are really nice are less ugly because they smile more, things like that. So it was actually like that's a really good point as well. But I think that Roald Dahl's problematic. I don't know if you guys heard, So he's not allowed to. We can't cite Roald Dahl or Dr. Seuss because they have said problematic things, so they're no longer considered part of literary history anymore. So yeah, sorry. C.S. Lewis too. He's been and Tolkien. They're all persona non grata. You guys have to read Morning Glory Milking Farm now. Everybody, that's your homework. Okay, Allison, read your thing.
Are we done with the dude?
Yeah, I mean,
Are we done
we
with
can
her?
we can do more of it another time if you want, but this is his whole video is him implying that she's a terrible right-wing conservative Christian garbage person, and that's why she's criticizing the absolute state of literature right now. So, and she shouldn't, and that's it. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, okay, all right. So, I did this is my trained stochastic spreadsheet, which I put things through. All right, so Lane's core complaint. Lane, I believe that's her name, right? Lane. The second
The woman
story,
who runs
correct?
the second story, yeah.
Yeah, Lane. Her core complaint is that modern fiction has lost the ability to render genuine evil because the literary and storytelling establishment has reclassified evil as a social construct rather than an objective moral reality. Right? Because we can't, honestly, we're not going to get anywhere with this dude's video, 1 hour, 15 minutes, that doesn't address any single one of her points. She identifies 3 permitted villain approaches. Make the villain a victim of social forces, make the villain a meditation on what's wrong with society, or make the villain secretly right, but using wrong methods. All 3 approaches share a common feature. They dissolve moral judgment into social positioning. Hey guys, you know what the essence of this problem is? She wants moral clarity, which is basically an operative position. There is good and bad actions. They should be recognized. She is being opposed by people who think relationally. Actions don't actually have consequences. What matters is your relationship to the social web. Okay? That dissolution maps directly onto relational modality processing applied to morality. The operative modality processes moral questions the way Werther processes the suicide debate in your Goethe analysis. As cases to be examined, mechanisms to be diagnosed, evidence to be weighed, evil in this framework is a definable thing, privation of good, identifiable through choices and their consequences. The speaker's examples of well-constructed villain, that's Lane's examples, Commodus' successive choices eroding good from his character, Dr. Whitley's fatherly love warped by the absence of good, Sauron is a moral void, the character from 2021, Killer, who literally has no identity because he's been emptied, are all operative diagnostic renderings of evil. They treat moral reality as material to be worked on, understood through its mechanism. So it's in essence, the idea that there is good and evil is basically a masculine ethical framing. Did you guys think that I would end up there? Because we did. We are here now. And I use the term operative framing. It's the mentality that looks at the world as inputs to the machine that create outputs, as operations on material reality. So people in that modality are gonna look at a character's actions and say that's where the morality lies. Okay. The relational modality processes moral questions through relational channels. What does this behavior mean in the social web? Who is positioned where? What does society say is wrong? When relational modality processing dominates storytelling institutions, the output is exactly what Lane describes. Evil becomes a social construct, because everything is a social construct. The villain becomes a representation of social forces. Moral judgment becomes a matter of emotional response rather than diagnostic assessment. Paul Spector isn't evil. He's a meditation on toxic masculinity. Hannibal Lecter isn't evil. He's a moral blank canvas defined by other people's perceptions. Thanos isn't evil. He might have a point. The connection to your to my framework, the modality framework, my institutional analysis from the relational modality failure mode document, the progressive frame instills a self-model where the operative frame's moral judgments get reclassified as simplistic or regressive. So because men look at people's actions, that is a simplistic and regressive analysis of people's morality based on their actions. What you need to evaluate people based on is their relationship to the social web and upholding the social web. The speaker describes this, Lane describes this exactly when she talks about the literary elite dismissing black cloak villains as childish and unrealistic. That dismissal is reading or relational modality processing doing what your framework predicts, converting an operative diagnostic capability, the ability to identify and render moral evil as a definable mechanism, into a social position, unsophisticated, lacking nuance, failure to understand complexity. And it's simply because when people look at or when men in particular, or Lane looks at this and diagnoses evil, that doesn't make sense to people who see the world in terms of a relational web. The speaker's observation about emotions replacing moral truth is particularly relevant. Lane's, sorry. She notes that Fuller used the emotional attachment between Hannibal and Will Graham. Aha, okay. That's a really stupid mispronunciation. I apologize, guys. That's probably one of my worst. I know how to pronounce
Nice.
Graham. Yeah, as a substitute for actual moral reasoning. Loneliness and sympathy become proxy for moral judgment. This maps onto the modality framework's identification of relational modality processing, where emotions become the all-serving stand-in for both character development and moral truth. If the audience feels sorry for the villain is morally softened. The relational modality has no channel for separating emotional response from moral assessment because it processes both through the same relational apparatus. The stigmatization angle works like this. The operative modality's approach to morality, diagnosing evil as a mechanism, rendering it as definable and objective, making clear moral judgments about characters based on their choices and actions, is the approach the literary establishment has specifically pathologized. I think we're all shocked at this moment that they have pathologized this. Because once again, masculinity is wrong. It's dismissed as simplistic, binary, lacking nuance. But what the speaker is what Lane is describing, is that the nuance being demanded is actually relational modality processing applied where operational processing produces better results. The nuanced villain, who is really a victim of social forces, is not more complex than Commodus or Dr. Whittenley. It's less complex because it has dissolved the moral mechanism into social signaling. Isn't that interesting? I think that we talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of actually looking at evil, you just look at the social signals of this person in the relational web. So you're not actually looking at how evil comes about, what it looks like, what its actions are, what its choices are. You're looking at a relationship in a web, a node in a web. The Lane's best example, the 2021 Japanese film Character, is about a good man, hardworking, talented, responsible, who can't write believable villains because he can't comprehend evil. He has to study good to understand what evil removes. That's operative diagnostic morality. Evil is what you get when you subtract specific goods from a person. And the specific goods that remain or are absent determine the character of the evil. That's the same cognitive operation that is like when I look at all of the male things that people, all of the things written by men, this is what we find invariably, except for Henry James and Proust. Right? Those are the two outliers, but every other man does this cognitive function.
Yep.
The operational reader who encounters a villain rendered as a social construct rather than a definable moral mechanism has nothing to engage with morally. The villain isn't a problem to be diagnosed, he's a position in the web. That's a version of the operative through line failure applied to, okay, so it's basically when somebody who likes operative content encounters a villain depicted by a social web, there's just no there, right? There just doesn't, it feels flat. And I'll try to explain further. So, and this is on intentions as moral currency within the social web. The reading modality processes the gap between interior and surface. It's constantly tracking what someone really means underneath what they show. If that interior is the primary object of attention, the moral assessment naturally gravitates towards intention rather than output. A person who meant well, but produced harm, is fundamentally different from a person who meant harm because the interior is the real thing and the output is secondary. So, but this is even worse because if you intend to do good, but do so by producing harm, the harm is okay somehow. It's justified. It's righteous.
Yep.
The operative modality process is the other direction. What did you do? What did it produce? What does the pattern of choices reveal? Intentions are data, but they don't override the mechanism. So even if you intend to bring about a utopia, the fact that you burnt down somebody's store to do it, not really that important to people who think in an operative modality. You guys sort of get the difference? Like from Brian's conversation, she was in a relational modality. She judges these people by the fact that they all share the beautiful dream that she shares. Therefore, if they burn down a shop in the process or kill a few people, well, that's well, you got to judge them by their intentions. And that makes absolutely no fucking sense to you, Brian, because you're looking at that and saying, but what about these horrific actions that they're taking? Not relevant to her. It's their intentions. It's the beautiful dream. Commodus, so what it produces, intentions are data, but they don't override the mechanism. Commodus intended to earn his father's love. That intention is understandable. His choices still eroded the good from his character, and the operative assessment doesn't let the intention rescue him. Right? So that's the big disconnect, Brian. You were like, but they're burning down shops, and she was saying, but their intentions are beautiful.
Yep.
Don't you understand that, you evil Nazi bastard? Okay, so in season 1 of Hannibal, Mads Mikkelsen's Lecter was rendered with something close to operative moral clarity. He was actively killing people. The evidence accumulated. He was evil, visible through what he did. The mechanism was on display. The speaker, or the Lane, describes Mikkelsen's performance as making Lecter into something like a moral black hole, almost entirely devoid of good, fascinating the way a king cobra is fascinating. The audience could see what he was through his actions. In later seasons, Fuller shifted the moral processing channel. He stopped diagnosing Lecter through what Lecter does and started processing him through how other people feel about him. Lecter was lonely. Lecter missed Will. Will missed Lecter. The audience felt sorry for both of them. The emotional attachment between the two characters became the moral content, not as a supplement to moral assessment, but as a replacement for it. Fuller essentially argued that because Will Graham emotionally accepted Hannibal, this constituted a kind of moral acceptance. The feeling was the verdict. So do you understand where like Hebristophilics come from now? If I love him, he's no longer evil. This is the intentions move applied at the narrative level. Fuller gave Hannibal legible intentions. He genuinely wanted connection, or legible, like desire for connection. He genuinely saw something special in Will. His interior contained something that read as authentic loneliness. Right? The reading modality system couldn't sustain the judgment this person is evil, because evil in that system lies in the intention, and Hannibal wants to be connected to someone. A person who genuinely wants a friend can't be fully evil no matter how many people he's eaten. Because the interior has been revealed as containing a desire to connect to the social web. Okay.
Yeah.
So Fuller doesn't have a coherent moral logic. Fuller wasn't operating from a privation theory or from any defined moral framework. He was operating from emotional response. What makes the audience feel uncomfortable? What makes them feel sympathy? What produces the most interesting emotional texture? Emotions replaced moral architecture entirely. That's reading modality processed to a domain where it produces incoherence. Because he's writing about a cannibalistic serial killer
Mm-hmm.
who has systematically removed good from his character, but he wants to have a friend, guys. That means he's good. Social readers don't lack moral capacity. They're capable, well, I don't know if this is moral capacity. They're capable of brutal, absolute judgment through the web. The mechanism is inclusion. You belong or you don't. And when the web decides that you don't belong, the judgment is swift and often permanent. No appeal process, no corrective system, no diagnosis of what went wrong that could be fixed. You're out. The difference is that social readers can't make moral judgments. Well, yes. I would say they can't make moral judgments. It's that their judgments run through a different channel. The operative channel diagnoses, here's what this person did. Here's the mechanism by which their choices produced evil. Here's the specific moral architecture revealed by the pattern. The reading channel accesses position. Does this person belong in the web? Are their intentions readable as good? Do they occupy a position the web recognizes as legitimate? This is why the postmodern villain collapses. The reading modality moral system can absolutely destroy a person, but it destroys them for failing to belong, for having the wrong position, for being read as having bad intentions, for being, one of the penis people. It can't destroy a person for having made choices that systematically removed good from their character, because that's an operative diagnosis. You remember that, I think it was Teal'c who brought up that experiment in which there was a bunch of people watching people play games, and the people playing
Oh yeah,
games
no,
would be
I talked about it. It was a study where they had they had a bunch of people watching people play games, and there were people who were cheating, and some of the people who were cheating were punished for cheating in some way, penalized. And what they found was the men got more satisfaction. There were people who were being punished unjustly and justly, I think it was. So some were unjustly punished and some were not, something like that. The men had more not like they had even less sympathy for the people who were justly punished, and the women had more sympathy for the people who were justly punished as well. So they had more sympathy for them than even the ones who were unjustly punished. Something like that. So women's sympathy for people is simply on the basis that they're being punished, regardless of whether it is just or unjust. Men are more likely to respond positively to just punishment. Like they like that. So
yes, it's satisfying. And that's the vasopressin architecture. But here's the thing. If you showed those women their political opponents being punished, they would be feeling pleasure. Because it's not, for women, it's not behavior, it's in-group, out-group.
We've already seen that when Charlie Kirk was assassinated.
Yeah, so it's in-group, out-group. So men will feel like it's justice when people who are bad actors are punished. Women will feel vindicated when somebody who they consider to be outside their social group, and not just punished, just like outside their social group, you can do whatever you want to them.
Mm-hmm.
Like they'll just be walking down the street and you decapitate them, and women will be like, that heat, they deserve that. If they're genuinely outside their social group, and that explains what happened with the Charlie Kirk assassination.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So when reading modality processors write villains, they produce villains who are excluded from the social web. Oh, sorry. It can't destroy a person for having made choices. The reading modality moral system can absolutely destroy a person, but destroys them for failing to belong, for having the wrong position, for being read as having bad intentions. Like you don't share the beautiful dream. You're the wrong person. You're just not part of our group. It can destroy it can't destroy a person or punish a person, really, let's be honest, for having made choices that systematically removed good from their character, because that's an operative diagnosis. So when a reading modality processor writes villain, or a relational modality processor writes villains, they produce villains who are excluded from the social web, representations of social evil, victims of society, symbols of what's wrong, rather than villains who have made definable moral choices that produce definable moral consequences. And also they write, completely flat, one-dimensional villains that are representation of cis white het men generally. The exclusion system also explains the Lane's observation about moral cowardice. She notes that writers couldn't commit to saying Thanos was morally wrong because that would require an objective moral judgment, an operative assessment. What they could do, and did, is soften his exclusion from the web by giving him readable intentions. He loves his daughters. He wants to save the universe. Once the intentions are visible, the web-based moral system can't fully exclude him, because exclusion requires reading the interior is bad, and his interior has been rendered as desiring connection. The operative system doesn't have this problem. Thanos' intentions are irrelevant to the diagnosis. His choices produce mass death. The mechanism is clear. The moral assessment follows from the mechanism, not from the interior. Okay, so the relational modality moral system doesn't actually scan the interior for moral good. So this is a correction. It scans for attachment. Hannibal is lonely. Hannibal misses Will. These are attachment signals. Thanos loves his daughter. Attachment signal. The reading modality processor detects attachment and converts it into moral weight, because in the web, attachment is the moral currency. Being connected to someone, being orientated towards someone, wanting to be in a relationship with someone, that's what the web tracks, and it's what it classifies as the morally relevant interior. That's why intentions function the way they do. I meant well isn't really a moral claim in the operative sense. It's a relational claim. I was orientated towards you. I was attached to the outcome. The reading modality system can't distinguish between relational orientation and moral quality, because when it's processing, they are the same object. Attachment equals good interior equals not fully excludable. Fuller didn't give Hannibal moral good, he gave him attachment. Hannibal's loneliness, his desire for Will's friendship, his capacity for emotional connection. Sadistic, okay, anyway. And I said, okay, let's look at reading modality and or relational modality and what its logic actually is. Because let's face it, progressives exclude half the human race from moral consideration. And this is the point where the system's internal logic reveals itself. The relational modality system claims it can't make objective moral judgments. Evil is a social construct. Villains are products of circumstance. Everyone deserves compassion and contextual understanding. But it simultaneously operates one of the most efficient categorical exclusion systems ever built. The contradiction isn't a bug. It's a system working exactly as designed, just not as advertised. The relational modality system doesn't actually run on compassion. It runs on attachment to the web. The question isn't, is this person morally good? It's, is this person attached to our web? Fictional Hannibal displays attachment. The web can't fully exclude him. Real-world demographic category pre-classified as detached from the progressive web? Excludable without contradiction. That means, cis-het white men are never really part of anything. Because the exclusion isn't a moral judgment. The system says it doesn't make those. It's a relational assessment. These people are not orientated towards us, not attached to our values, not connected to our web. And in the relational modality system, the absence of attachment to the web is the moral problem. It's the only moral problem that the system can actually detect. If you're not part of the web, we will persecute you. This is why the system can extend infinite compassion to a fictional cannibal, while categorically excluding real men who have done nothing wrong. The cannibal displayed attachment, the men didn't, or more precisely, their category membership pre-signals non-attachment to the web before any individual assessment can occur. The compassion isn't compassion, it's attachment detection. And the exclusion isn't moral judgment, it's the same attachment detection running in reverse. No attachment signal detected, excluded. Mr. Zod, the second video's respondent. So now I'm going to do the conclusion on Mr. Zod, guys.
Okay.
Brace yourselves. Actually demonstrates, okay, this is going to surprise everyone. The reading modality system, the relational modality system, encountering Lane's operative style moral claims and doing exactly what my system predicts. Mr. Zod doesn't engage with Lane's moral arguments on their merits. This is a freaking stochastic spreadsheet, just going through each of these two people's arguments and seeing what comes out when it pattern matches to them. This is like a neutral assessment, about as neutral as it gets. Mr. Zod doesn't engage with Lane's moral arguments on their merits. Mr. Zod reads Lane, her aesthetic, her sources, her cultural markers, her probable religious background, and classifies her within the web. Well, outside of his web, of course. Christian apologetics adjacent, fundamentalist bubble, regressive, incurious. The content of her moral claims never gets evaluated because the source has been placed in a web position that pre-qualifies the input, namely outside of his web. You see, that was what his entire activity was in that entire video, was to place this woman outside of his web so he could dismiss everything she said without engaging in any of it. And this is exactly what the modality framework would predict someone like him would do. The content of her moral claims never gets evaluated because the source has been placed in a web position that pre-qualifies the input. This is the institutional kill switch. If you have any, okay, well, what this means is that, for example, in the publishing industry, because relational or modality thinkers cannot process operative content, they cannot actually improve on any metric. Like any metric, including a moral metric, is pre-categorized as illegitimate. What's notable is that Lane's actual argument, that evil is definable, that villain characters need to be rendered as genuinely bad through their choices, that moral clarity in storytelling matters, is an operative diagnostic claim about how fiction works. Mr. Zod can't engage with it operatively because Mr. Zod doesn't process morality operatively. Instead, Mr. Zod processes Lane's position relationally. What does it mean that this person holds these views? What is her true motivation? And how does her true motivation make it so that I don't even have to engage with the things that she's saying? What web does she belong to? What category does holding these views place her in? The answer, conservative, traditional, rigid, probably Christian, is the assessment. The argument was never evaluated. Okay. Who said AI can't think? No. I'm just kidding. It can't think, but it can pattern match. And it pattern matched Mr. Zod to a relational thinker that encountered operative content, classified it relationally as irrelevant. And also probably, it wouldn't be, he probably thinks that the world would be better off if someone like Lane was put into a gas chamber in Minecraft.
Yeah.
Just saying. Okay. Because the relational web and people in it are so compassionate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So anyway, that's done. That's my analysis. Hope you guys found it edifying. You probably found it boring, but I'm really interested in this stuff.
No,
Okay,
I
go
think
ahead,
it's
Brian.
useful stuff. No, I think that's it. I think it's useful stuff to understand, like where
Yeah.
this is coming from. So
Mm-hmm.
I did get a bunch of super chats, and then I think we can wrap
Sure.
it up. All right, so NovaFan21 gave us a Rumble rant and said, "Sorry if this was all. It was $1. Sorry if this is already addressed before, but I thought I'd share this from a different video. Apparently, romance books are cucked because the boyfriend has to be a yes man. I don't know.
This is, do you want me to answer that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Romance that women actually buy? No. Romance that the publishing industry, well, first of all, isn't romance. It's actually vindication narratives that the publishing industry is falsely presenting as romance. Yes. But women
Mhm.
don't buy those. And I've actually found a heuristic that pretty much predicts, at least in the few examples that I've managed to scrape up, because in order to run my analyses, I would have to have like $2,000 to get access to the full data sets. But what I've found, my predictions have held. So I basically have a heuristic that explains which romance novels do better than other romance novels. And it is 100% not what the people who are creating these romance imprints would predict or want it to be. And
Yeah.
basically, the reason why is because they're enforcing ideology onto a medium that is actually the exact opposite. Like, I know this is going to sound strange, but romance is possibly the least feminist thing. At least
Mhm.
the kind of romance that women actually like, and the reasons why they like it, and what it's actually doing. And the reason why I say that is because feminism proposes that the relationship between men and women is one in which the site of, well, basically, let's put it this way: heterosexuality is the site of women's oppression by men. Okay. and and romance is basically presenting that, and it is one of the things that women buy the most, and it's not that. So it is completely antithetical to feminism in a
Mhm.
fundamental way. But the problem is that a lot of the romance that's coming out, including the romantasy that publishers are pushing everywhere now, first of all, they're doing it from an ideological basis that actually doesn't recognize what's being sold in romance, and they are not. They're failing. Like, all of this stuff is not being bought by women. And in fact, the rating rates of women are declining now substantially too. Like, when I said towards the beginning that the publishing industry is a smoking crater, I am not exaggerating. And
Yeah.
the reason why is because the people who are publishing books now are not publishing books for men. They are not publishing books for women. They are publishing vindication fantasies for feminists. And nobody wants to read that. So their numbers now are like 500, 1,000 books sold, if they're lucky.
Mhm.
And yeah, so it's a cratering industry, and a huge part of the reason is because relational readers, relational modality thinkers, cannot iterate on improvements.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you guys want to hear this. This is
I
like okay, I will. Too much? You want to get
yeah,
going?
I got two more super chats to read. So,
Oh, okay.
all right. So NovaFan gives another one follow up, and he says for $1. Apparently, if the boyfriend has flaws and romancing him means tolerating toxic masculinity, so him being sanitized and perfectly safe is not what a lot of female readers want. Oh dear. Allison basically responded to that already. Women don't read that. That's just what the publishing industry puts out. Beardmaster 6208 gives us $5 Canadian and says, if evil doesn't exist, wouldn't that mean Trump is just misunderstood? I know they would never think that, but it's funny to think about. Well, no, they believe that evil exists, but it's about inversion, not necessarily erasure. It just depends on like what we're doing. So like, but yeah, no, evil exists. It's penis people, it's men, it's white people, it's Christians, it's capitalism. But like, how do you get there is first you have to like convince people that there is no truth, and then you start creating a new truth, and then you normalize that new truth. And that's we're on the destroy truth phase right now of ideological subversion or active measures. So all right, that's all the super chats. Let me just see if there's any super chows. I already read that. So do you have anything yeah, go ahead.
Can I just so just an example of the relational web not being able to update. So there's an imprint, I think Tor. I think it's Tor. Bramble. It's basically a romantasy imprint. And it's being headed by, of course, a female acquisitions editor. And she has been acquiring things based on conversations on Book Talk. So beta heroes, cinnamon roll heroes, those would be the yes men heroes you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And lesbian heroes and cozies. And she acquires them, does gigantic print runs for them. So like the thing she started at 100,000 and sells about maybe 6,000. And then instead of asking herself, maybe where I'm going for information on the market, these women are actually not telling me what they want. They're telling each other what they want to hear. Like they're relationally signaling the correct attitudes. Like, oh yes, I don't like a strong man. I want one who just sucks. Like it's like he's just attached to me like a parasite and does everything I want. And then this editor acquires said property and finds out that no woman wants to buy it. And she doesn't make the conclusion, oh, hey, maybe these women are lying because what they're talking about is social signaling, not actual appetite. No, she goes back to the social signals, reads them again, and acquires a cozy lesbian feminist romance. And then prints 250,000 copies of that. So we've gone from 100,000 of copies selling 6 to 250,000 copies. And guess what that sells? 10,000. And then she's like, oh, well, I guess I didn't read the signals right. I'll go back. And then she finds out that, I don't know, these women, they think that the next big thing is romance stories between geometric objects. And she goes and acquires one of those. 500,000 prints. And we're at that stage. Like Brambles is that stage. They put money towards 500,000 books, right? And now we're going to see if that bet pays out for them. But each time, instead of thinking, hey, wait, maybe these women aren't actually signaling what they want. They're just playing social games. She just bets larger and larger. And I'm like looking at this, I'm like, at what point does this nonsense hit a man's desk? And he looks at this and says, what the fuck are you doing? But it's not yet. I guess it'll be like 2 million, 10 million prints with like 5 sold. That's so funny to watch. But anyway, this is the kind of crap that's happening in the publishing industry. They absolutely have no idea what the fuck they're doing. It is hilarious. And they have no ability to course correct because they don't understand that the product isn't what's wanted. They think it's the positioning. Like, oh, we didn't time the market right. Oh, we didn't position this right. We didn't get this into the hands of the AstroTurf Book Talk influencers that we have access to. We didn't do this. We didn't properly figure out the relational web before we release this without realizing they are putting money behind something nobody wants. And the reason why they're putting money behind nobody wants is because these women are not telling them what they want. They're lying and saying what they think they should want.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm just putting it out there. This is the kind of nonsense you can see. All right, I'm done.
Fair enough. All right.
Okay.
Okay, that's all the super chows and super chats.
All right. Okay, so if you want to send us a message at any time after the show is over, if you liked anything we discussed, talked about, you can do so at feedthebadger.com. Yeah, ranted about. Like I have a lot to say about the publishing industry. I apologize. I could say a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
But it is absolutely a disaster. And I'm not kidding when I say a lot of this is fraud.
Oh,
but anyway,
sure.
if you have any commentary on this, feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Very much appreciated. Whatever funds you send, we get the full benefit of. And you get the benefit of sending your comment through something that doesn't enhance it in a relational way. And if you would like to support the show, feedthebadger.com/support. If you enjoy this analysis and commentary, and understanding where these people are coming from and why they're so incomprehensible. And if you want to join our community, badgernation.online. So I'll hand it back to you, Brian.
All right. Well, if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Hit the I was gonna say one last thing about this. Where I think this Mr. Zod video could be coming from too is also a little bit of haterade. He might be a little bit of haterade because he has 13,000 subscribers and Second Story has 132,000 subscribers. So maybe it's because she's making headway on her arguments and he doesn't like that. But that's me speculating. I'm betting that a lot of the people who are trying to refute her are probably not doing as well as she is.
Yeah, well, because there's a lot of shit that's being put out by the publishing industry and people are tired of it.
Yep.
And unfortunately, like people like Lane from Second Story, they don't even know the half of it.
No, I'm sure that
like,
she's not
good
even
Lord.
like she doesn't have the whole story, but it doesn't matter. She's even reaching in the direction possibly of getting there is going to be enough for the elitist midwit writing community to dogpile on her. Remember, these people probably all came out of Tinder. So is it Tinder? What was it? No, Tumblr. It was Tumblr. And Tinder. But Tumblr. Yeah. So remember, just think about that.
Well, if
okay?
they came out of Tinder, they might be like actual mammals with a normal.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think anybody.
Oh, nobody comes out of Tinder.
Pulse goes to
Nothing
Tinder.
comes out of Tinder.
All right, but Tumblr is what I was trying to say. All right, anyway, so yeah, like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Thanks, guys, for coming on the show, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.